Shut up. I'm the head of the family, you have to put me first, no matter what. Bart's fever isn't a big deal. I couldn't believe what he just said. How could you say that? As a parent, you should care about your child more than anything else. Why can't you understand that? Then Bart said something shocking. The person who makes the money is the most important, so I should come first in this house. If you can't accept that, then leave. That was when I decided I had enough. Fine, I'll leave. Yeah, leave. You wouldn't survive without my salary anyway. My name is Rachel, and I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Bart for 5 years, and we have a 3-year-old son named David. We live together as a family of 3. At first, things were great with Bart, but lately, he's been acting arrogant, and it's really bothering me. I met Bart on a blind date, and I was instantly attracted to him. He worked for a good company and was always cheerful. He seemed to like me too, and we started dating right away. After a year, we got married. In the beginning, Bart was kind and caring. He even helped with housework, and he celebrated my birthday and our anniversary. But as time passed, he started treating me with disrespect. I tried to tell myself that things change over time in marriage, but he was getting too cold. Hey, why haven't you ironed my shirt? And when I wake up, my socks should be ready. It was hard for me to take care of David. You're not a child, you should get your own clothes ready. Huh? How dare you argue with your husband? I'm the one providing for you, so you should do as I say. Bart started acting like this after David was born, and I didn't want to get a divorce right away because of our son. But there's another problem. Bart doesn't contribute much to our family budget. He earns $2,500 a month but only gives me $500, saying it should be enough. He spends the rest of his salary on clothes, golf, and other things. It's not enough to cover everything, and we can't even save money for the future or pay for David's education. No matter how much I try to talk to him, he says, "I'm giving you enough money, use what I give you." I keep asking Bart to contribute more, but he won't listen, and we end up fighting. Meanwhile, he complains about how I do housework. It's impossible for a family of 3 to live on just $500 a month. So, to save money, I cook small portions or cheap meals with inexpensive ingredients. We end up eating the same thing a lot. But Bart complains about it, saying, "You're a useless wife who can't cook." Our relationship was falling apart, but I still put up with it until David turned 3. Then something happened that made me realize I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, David was unusually quiet. I thought he might be sick, so I checked his forehead and found he had a high fever. I took his temperature, and it was really high. I rushed him to the hospital, but it was already closed, so we went to the emergency room. There were a lot of people waiting, and it took a while to be seen by the doctor. I tried to comfort David while we waited, telling him, "We'll be called soon. Hang in there." Finally, the doctor saw us, gave David some medicine, and sent us home. I gave David something easy to eat, gave him medicine, and put him to bed while I cooled his forehead. I felt a bit better, but it was the highest fever he had ever had, so I was really worried and exhausted. Then I heard the sound of the key turning in the lock. Bart had come home. "I'm home. Welcome home. Where's my dinner?" "I'm sorry, I'll make it now." I was lying on the couch and was about to get up to go to the kitchen. "What do you mean? Are you kidding me? You think I'm an idiot?" "Sorry, but David had a high fever, so we went to the hospital. I haven't eaten either." I tried to explain calmly, but Bart wouldn't listen. "I don't care if you haven't eaten, just get my dinner ready." I couldn't believe he was acting like this when David was sick. "Shut up, I'm in charge here, you need to put me first. Bart's fever doesn't matter." I couldn't just ignore what he said. How could you say that? As a parent, you should care about your child first. Why can't you understand that? Normally, if your child has a high fever and goes to the hospital, you'd be worried about them. But Bart said something even worse. "The one who makes the money is the most important, so I come first in this house. If you can't accept that, then leave." Something inside me snapped. Up until now, I had hoped Bart would go back to being the kind man he was before, but now, I saw there was no hope left. He couldn't even put our child first, and he thought the one who makes more money was better. I couldn't deal with that mentality anymore. "Okay, I'll leave then." "Yeah, leave, you wouldn't survive without my salary anyway." "Then I'll just eat out tonight. You should go back to your parents' house and calm down." Bart left after saying that. Does he think I'm weak and can't do anything on my own? I'll show him what I'm capable of. I started packing while Bart was gone. David still had a fever, so I waited until he felt better. Once David was asleep, I was ready to leave anytime. The next morning, when David's fever had gone down, I went to check on him. He was still sleeping. After wiping off his sweat and dressing him, I went to the kitchen for breakfast. That's when I ran into Bart, who was leaving for work. When he saw me, he smirked. "What, you haven't left yet?" "I can't leave until David's better." "You really can't leave, can you? You're just a stay-at-home wife. You'll never make it." He laughed and left for work. He made me even angrier. How did he become such a terrible person? When we were dating and at the beginning of our marriage, he was at least a little kinder and more thoughtful. While I was thinking about this, my son woke up. "Mom, I'm hungry. Are you feeling better now?" "Yeah, much better." After breakfast, David was feeling much better, so I decided to leave with him today. I called my parents to come pick us up, and we packed our things. By mid-afternoon, we were at my parents' house. As soon as I stepped into their house, I felt completely drained. I almost fainted from exhaustion. My parents were really worried. "Are you okay, Rachel?" "Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I've been trying so hard to protect us. I didn't realize how much it was taking out of me." "Wow, Bart must have really pushed you a lot." "Yeah, it was more than just emotional abuse." Both of my parents were shocked when they heard how bad things had gotten with Bart. "Grandpa, let's play together." "Okay, let's play. Can we go buy some snacks?" "Snacks? Yes, I want some too." Dad took David out to give me some rest. "You should lie down and rest," Mom said, giving me some blankets. I thanked her and lay down, falling asleep right away. A few hours later, I woke up to the smell of something delicious cooking. It was already evening, and my mom was making dinner. When I went to the dining table, I saw a colorful spread of delicious-looking food. David was so excited, saying, "It looks yummy." My mom's cooking always made me feel better, and it filled me with a deep sense of comfort. "You can stay here as long as you need to heal from all the stress." It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders hearing my parents say that. 2 weeks flew by as I relaxed and recovered. Then, one day, someone came to my parents' house. It was Bart. Dad asked, "What do you want to do?" as he looked at the intercom. "I don't want to see him yet," I said. Dad nodded. "Okay, go to the back," and he handled Bart himself. Bart insisted on seeing me, but Dad refused to let him in. After a while, Bart gave up and left. From what I heard later, Bart didn't come to apologize. He never mentioned anything about saying sorry. I knew he was probably just struggling with the housework, realizing how messy everything was without me, but that's not my problem anymore. I hope he understands how hard housework is. He used to help, so he just had to remember how he did it, but I guess he forgot because he wasn't used to doing it. While staying at my parents' house, I blocked Bart's number, so the only way he could reach me was by coming to my parents' house. I didn't go back to him and stayed there with David. Bart came by a few times, but each time, Dad sent him away. A month passed, and Bart was at his limit. He begged, "Please let me see Rachel," bowing to my father. I thought it was time to see him, so I asked Dad to let Bart come in to talk to me. My mom took David to the back room to wait. When I saw Bart, I was shocked. He looked awful. His hair was messy, and his clothes were dirty and wrinkled. He had come straight from work, but his suit looked like he had slept in it. "Hey, Rachel, you've had enough now, right? Just come home." That was the first thing he said when he saw me after a long time. In that moment, all my hope vanished, and I felt like a cold wall was growing between us. I need to get away from him as soon as I can. I don't know what you're thinking, but if you're not going to say anything, my house is a mess, and I don't know what to do. As my wife, you should do your duty, Bart said, even though my father was right there. My dad looked shocked, because Bart was repeating everything I had told him about how he treated me. "Is that all you have to say? Normally, you should be apologizing," my dad said. "Huh?" Bart looked confused. "Why should I apologize? You're the one who left me, and you're not doing any housework. I came all the way here after you did something selfish." Is he for real? I can't save him anymore. If you really think like that, then there's nothing more to talk about. Let's divorce. I took out the divorce papers I had prepared when I came to my parents' house and handed them to him. "Huh? Divorce? Why are you saying this all of a sudden?" "All of a sudden? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt and tormented me?" "Honestly, I should have asked for a divorce a long time ago. You make me do everything you don't want to do, and you don't even help me with raising our child. You only put a little money into our family budget. There's no way we can live on just $500 a month. How can you not understand that? You only care about yourself, don't you? Bart looked stunned, not expecting me to be this angry. But you've been getting by with the money I've given you, and your meals have been decent lately. Did you think I wasn't doing anything? I'm working from home now, because the money you give isn't enough. Huh, really? I knew I couldn't give David a better life if I didn't do something, so I started looking for a remote job. I found one as an English teacher. I had lived in the US when I was younger, and I spoke English fluently. I had attended international schools and studied English literature at university, so I was well qualified. I began teaching right away, and I thought of creative ways to make learning English fun for my students. As a result, I started studying Western movies and music, and decided to create my own teaching materials by gathering phrases that could be used in everyday situations. Many people who want to learn English love Western movies and music, so I adjusted the movies and artists I used based on each student's preferences. This worked really well for my students, and many of them started asking me for help. Because of that, I'm now making a decent amount of money. I had no idea. How much are you making? About $4,000 a month. What, that much? So, I make more than you now, and I don't need to live with you anymore. Bart was completely shocked. He couldn't believe that his wife, whom he thought was beneath him, was earning more than he was. Why am I so miserable? What do you mean, all of a sudden? My coworkers are getting promoted before me, and now my juniors are moving ahead of me too. They all think I'm an idiot, and to top it off, you're even making more money than me. I sighed deeply. So what? Huh? It doesn't matter if your salary is lower or higher than other people's. What matters is whether you and your family are happy. For David and me, it doesn't matter if you're not getting promoted. What's important is that you make time for your family and provide for them. Don't you think so? I don't want you hurting me just to protect your fragile pride. Shut up. A man has to fight his battles and not lose. At that moment, my dad, who had been silent until then, spoke up. So, you're trying to boost your self-esteem by taking out your work stress on my daughter, spending money on your hobbies and clothes to feel better, and ignoring your family? Bart looked uncomfortable hearing my dad's words. As I told my daughter, the most important thing for a husband and father is to be the strong pillar of the family, supporting them financially, but you only think of yourself. I can't trust a man like that with my precious daughter and grandchild anymore. Now, sign the divorce papers and leave. My dad was furious. He had tried to stay calm in front of me, but he had reached his limit. Bart signed the divorce papers, trembling from my dad's anger. After Bart said, "Oh, I'm sorry," he quickly left. And that's how Bart and I ended our marriage so quickly. Later, I heard from a mutual friend that Bart was saying, "I dumped my wife because she was a useless, lousy wife." But at work, everyone already knew how Bart was, so they just ignored him. No one would want him as a boss, so he stayed in the same position for years without a promotion. One day, a new employee asked him, "What? You're a mid-career employee and haven't been promoted at your age? Are you a new graduate who just joined? You can't even do your job, huh?" The employee made fun of him, and Bart left work early, embarrassed. Apparently, once you're an adult, a twisted personality is hard to change. I decided that I would raise David carefully, hoping he would grow up to be an honest and kind person, using Bart as a bad example. Now, David smiles at me with such a sweet and carefree smile, and I know he will never turn into someone like Bart. To protect that smile, I will keep working hard every day. Bart is a foolish man who destroys others' happiness just to protect his own fragile pride, but I'm glad Rachel and David got out of that situation quickly. With the money Rachel's making, I'm sure she can manage as a single mother. I hope Rachel and her beautiful son continue to live a happy life. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
The doorbell chimed 3 times in rapid succession, followed by aggressive knocking that made my coffee mug rattle. I already knew who it was. Only one person had that particular way of announcing their presence, like they were declaring war on my front door. "Coming?" I called out, quickly smoothing down my shirt. My name is Danielle, and I was about to face my own personal nightmare, my mother-in-law, Sabrina. When I opened the door, there she stood in all her glory, perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit, with not one but 3 massive suitcases beside her. "Danielle, dear," she said, air-kissing both my cheeks. You look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? That's not helping your situation, you know." Before I could respond, she was already directing the poor Uber driver to bring her luggage inside. My stomach dropped at the sight of those bags. This wasn't a casual visit. "Sabrina, we weren't expecting you," I managed to say, watching helplessly as her belongings invaded my carefully organized foyer. "Corbin didn't mention you were coming." "Oh, that's because I didn't tell him," she replied breezily, already making her way to our guest room like she owned the place. "I decided it was time for an intervention. 2 years of marriage and still no grandchildren? Something needs to be done." I followed her upstairs, my hands clenching and unclenching. "We've talked about this, Corbin and I have been trying." She cut in, making air quotes. Yes, but clearly you need help. That's why I'm here. I've brought some special herbs from my naturopath, and I've scheduled appointments with the best fertility specialist in the city." I stood in the doorway, watching her unpack like she was settling in for a month-long siege. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Lucille. "Coffee in 20? Need to tell you something." "I have plans," I said, already backing away. "With a friend." Sabrina looked up from her suitcase, her eyes narrowing. "More important than family planning?" "It's work-related," I lied. "Very urgent. I'll be back in a couple of hours." I practically ran down the stairs, grabbing my keys and purse. As I started the car, I could see Sabrina watching from the guest room window, probably already planning ways to fix my apparently broken body. The coffee shop was my sanctuary, and Lucille was already there with 2 steaming mugs waiting. One look at my face and she knew. "Spill it," she said, sliding my vanilla latte closer. "She's here, with luggage, 3 suitcases worth of luggage," I groaned, collapsing into the chair. "And she's brought herbs, Lucille." "Oh God," Lucille winced. "The fertility crusade continues?" "She doesn't know when to stop," I said, lowering my voice. "And we can't tell her about the adoption plans yet. It would break her traditional little heart, and probably Corbin's chances of ever having peace again." "Speaking of the adoption," Lucille leaned forward. "That's actually why I wanted to meet. I just heard from my contact at the agency. There's a little girl, 8 years old. Her name is Leah." My heart skipped a beat. "Tell me everything." "She's amazing, Danny. Smart, funny, been through some tough times, but still has the biggest heart. They think you and Corbin would be perfect for her." I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. This was what we'd been waiting for, planning for in secret, and now Sabrina was camping out in our house, probably burning sage and mixing fertility potions. My phone buzzed again, Corbin this time. "Mom just called. Why didn't you tell me she was coming?" "Because I didn't know," I typed back furiously. "Your mother has staged a fertility intervention. Help." "On my way home," he replied. "Try not to kill her before I get there?" I looked at Lucille, who was watching me with sympathy. "I have to go back, don't I?" "Unless you want to move in with me," she offered with a small smile, "though I suspect she'd find you there too." Standing up, I squared my shoulders. If she only knew that while she's trying to fix me, we're about to make her a grandmother in a way she never expected. "Just hold on to that thought," Lucille said, giving my hand a squeeze. "It'll make all her meddling easier to bear." As I drove home, I could see Sabrina through the living room window, rearranging my furniture according to what I assumed were her feng shui principles. This was going to be a long week, or however long those 3 suitcases were planning to stay. Little did she know I had a secret weapon. The knowledge that somewhere out there, a little girl named Leah was waiting to make our family complete, in a way no amount of herbs or fertility treatments ever could. Quick, she's in the shower, I whispered urgently to Corbin, tugging him toward the basement door. The adoption paperwork wasn't going to review itself, and these stolen moments were all we had now. The basement lights flickered on, revealing our makeshift office, a card table covered with documents, photos, and dreams of our future family. 3 days into Sabrina's surprise stay, and we'd gotten pretty good at this cloak and dagger routine. Leah's caseworker sent over the final forms, Corbin said, pulling papers from his briefcase. We need to sign these tonight. The sound of running water upstairs was our timer. I grabbed a pen, scanning the documents as quickly as possible while still being thorough. This was too important to rush. Did you see what Mom did to the kitchen? Corbin asked, his voice tight. She's hung dried herbs everywhere, says they promote fertility. Oh, I saw, and smelled, and sneezed, I replied, initialing another page. Don't forget the fertility goddess statue she placed in our bedroom. I'm sorry about all this, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I should talk to her. The water stopped. We froze, looking at each other in panic. Danielle, Corbin? Sabrina's voice called from upstairs. Where are you two? We scrambled to gather the papers. Corbin shoved them back into his briefcase just as footsteps approached the basement door. The handle jiggled. Why is this door locked? Sabrina's voice was sharp with suspicion. Just organizing some old boxes, I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Lots of dust down here. You wouldn't want to ruin your outfit. Nonsense, I can help. Open the door. Corbin gave me a desperate look. I pointed to the storage boxes we'd actually been meaning to organize. He nodded, quickly pulling them out while I ran up the stairs. Opening the door, I came face to face with Sabrina, her hair wrapped in a towel and wearing what looked like a very expensive silk robe. See? Just boxes, I gestured behind me. Corbin's trying to find his old baseball cards. She peered past me, eyes narrowing. In the dark? I flicked on the stairwell light, mentally kicking myself for not noticing we'd turned everything off in our panic. Found them, Corbin called up, waving a dusty shoebox. My husband, the quick thinker. Well, since you're both free now, Sabrina said, clapping her hands together, I've organized a little gathering for tonight. Just a few close friends who specialize in alternative medicine and fertility treatments. My stomach dropped. Tonight? But we have nothing that can't be rescheduled, she interrupted. This is about family, Danielle. Our family's future. I felt my phone vibrate. Probably Freddie, my brother, checking if I was still sane. I'd been texting him hourly updates about Operation Survive Sabrina. I'll start preparing the house, Sabrina continued, already walking away. We'll need to rearrange the living room for the healing circle. The moment she was out of earshot, Corbin emerged from the basement, briefcase clutched to his chest like a shield. Healing circle? Your mother is trying to sage me into pregnancy, I whispered back. We need backup. I'm calling Freddie. 10 minutes later, I was hiding in the pantry with my phone. Fred, I'm dying here. She's invited her whole fertility cult over. Want me to create a diversion? My brother offered. I could fake an emergency. No, I need you here. Come to the gathering. Bring wine. Lots of wine. You're not supposed to drink while trying to conceive, he said in a perfect imitation of Sabrina's voice. Freddie. Kidding. I'll be there. Want me to accidentally spill something on her healing crystals? Despite everything, I laughed. Just hurry. Emerging from the pantry, I found Sabrina had already transformed our living room into something between a new age shop and a fertility temple. Crystals everywhere, candles burning, and was that incense? The energy in here was all wrong, she explained, seeing my expression. No wonder you're having troubles. But don't worry. By the end of tonight, we'll have your chakras aligned and your womb ready for my grandchild. I caught Corbin's eye across the room. He was standing by the basement door, one hand protectively on his briefcase, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I couldn't blame him. If only Sabrina knew that while she was preparing to cleanse my chakras, we were preparing to welcome an 8-year-old girl into our lives. A little girl who needed a family far more than Sabrina needed a biological grandchild. The doorbell rang, the first of Sabrina's fertility experts arriving. I took a deep breath, remembering Leah's photo tucked safely away in the basement. We just had to get through this night. And maybe, just maybe, Freddie would actually spill that wine on something important. Sunday brunch was Sabrina's latest battlefield strategy. She'd invited the entire family, including her sister and niece, Leah, the same name as our potential adoptive daughter, which felt like the universe playing some cosmic joke. "More mimosa?" Freddie whispered, appearing at my elbow with the bottle. He'd been my saving grace through this whole ordeal, keeping my glass full and my sanity intact. "Please," I muttered, watching Sabrina arrange place settings with military precision, though I probably shouldn't. According to last night's fertility priestess, alcohol is poison to my baby-making chances. "Speaking of chances," Sabrina announced loudly, making everyone at the table jump. "I have a wonderful suggestion for Corbin and Danielle." My fork clattered against the plate. Corbin reached for my hand under the table. "As you all know, my dear niece Leah needs a stable home environment," Sabrina continued, gesturing to the quiet 8-year-old sitting at the far end of the table. "And since Danielle and Corbin are struggling, perhaps fostering Leah would be the perfect solution." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at the young girl, who looked up from her pancakes with wide eyes. This Leah had the same dark curls as our Leah, the same uncertain smile. "Mom," Corbin started, but Sabrina steamrolled over him. "It makes perfect sense. You can practice being parents, and Leah gets a loving home. Who knows, maybe the act of nurturing will jumpstart your fertility." "Sabrina," her sister Jane interrupted, "we haven't discussed this." "Excuse me," I said, pushing back from the table. The room was spinning slightly. "I need some air." I fled to the back porch, gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white. The door opened behind me, and small footsteps approached. "Are you okay?" a tiny voice asked. I turned to find Leah, Sabrina's Leah, standing there, holding a napkin-wrapped pancake. "I brought you breakfast," she said, offering it to me. "You didn't finish yours." "Thank you," I managed, taking the slightly sticky package. "That's very thoughtful of you." She leaned against the railing beside me, kicking her feet against the deck. "Aunt Sabrina talks a lot about babies." I couldn't help but laugh. "Yes, she certainly does." "I don't want to be your practice baby," she said suddenly, looking up at me with serious eyes. That's what she meant, right? Using me to practice? My heart cracked a little. "No one should ever be used as practice," I said firmly. "You deserve a family who wants you for you, not as a test run." The door opened again, and Corbin stepped out. "Everything okay out here?" "We're having a pancake party," I said, holding up my napkin. "Want to join?" He sat down on the steps, and Leah surprised us both by plopping down next to him. "Your mom is intense," she informed him matter-of-factly. Corbin choked on a laugh. "Yeah, she really is." Inside, we could hear Sabrina and Jane arguing in heated whispers. Freddie's voice occasionally cut through, probably trying to mediate. "Do you want kids?" Leah asked suddenly, looking between us. "For real, not practice ones?" Corbin and I exchanged glances. "Yes," I said softly, "we really do." She nodded sagely. "You'd be good at it. You didn't talk to me like I'm stupid." Most grown-ups do that. Before we could respond, Sabrina burst onto the porch. There you all are. We're discussing important family matters, and you're out here eating cold pancakes? We're bonding, Leah announced, standing up. And they don't want to practice on me. They want real kids. Sabrina's face went through several interesting expressions before settling on something between confusion and frustration. Well, of course they want real. I mean, you are real. I just thought, I think we're done here, Jane said firmly, appearing behind her sister. Leah, honey, get your jacket. We're going home. As they left, Leah turned back to give us a small wave. I waved back, fighting tears. Well, Sabrina huffed once they'd gone, that could have gone better, but don't worry, I have other ideas. Mom, Corbin cut in, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in days. Enough, please, she blinked at him, startled. I'm only trying to help. By ambushing us? By trying to use a child as some kind of fertility experiment? I couldn't keep the anger from my voice anymore. That's not help, Sabrina. That's control. She drew herself up, nostrils flaring. Well, if you had a better plan for giving me grandchildren, maybe we do, I snapped, then immediately bit my tongue. Corbin's hand found mine again, squeezing hard. Sabrina's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? But I was already turning away, pulling Corbin with me. We had a different Leah waiting for us, one who wouldn't be anyone's practice run. And suddenly, keeping that secret felt more like a burden than a shield. The children's home was quieter than I expected, filled with afternoon sunlight and crayon drawings on the walls. Our Leah sat cross-legged on a beanbag chair, a book open in her lap, dark curls falling over her face, just like in her photo. She loves to read, Ms. Martinez, the social worker, whispered, especially adventure stories. I watched as Leah turned a page, completely absorbed in her world of words. When she finally looked up and saw us, her whole face lit up with recognition from our previous visits. You came back! She jumped up, the book tumbling forgotten to the floor. We promised we would, I said, kneeling down to her level. What are you reading today? Harry Potter. I'm at the part where... She launched into an elaborate explanation of Hogwarts houses and magical creatures, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. Corbin sat down on the floor, and Leah immediately included him in her story, asking which house he thought he'd be in. I watched them interact, my heart so full it hurt. Would you like to go to the park? I asked when she finally paused for breath. Ms. Martinez said we could take you out for ice cream, too. Really? Her eyes widened. Can I get 2 scoops? 3 if you want, Corbin said, earning himself a high five. The playground was almost empty when we arrived. Leah made a beeline for the swings, calling over her shoulder, Push me, both of you. We spent the next hour watching her conquer every piece of equipment, her laughter echoing across the park. When she finally slowed down, we walked to the ice cream shop, where she carefully selected chocolate, strawberry, and mint chip. 1 for each scoop. You have ice cream on your nose, I laughed, reaching out with a napkin. She scrunched up her face but let me wipe it off. My friend Maria says you're going to be my new mom and dad, she said suddenly, looking between us. Is that true? I felt Corbin tense beside me. We'd been working toward this moment, but it still caught us off guard. We'd like to be, I said carefully, if that's something you'd want to. She stirred her melting ice cream thoughtfully. Would I have my own room? Absolutely, Corbin nodded. You could decorate it however you want. And could I bring my books? Every single one, I promised. She seemed to consider this deeply. What about your mom? She asked, looking at Corbin. The one who visits a lot? Maria says she heard the grown-ups talking about her. My stomach clenched. Of course, word about Sabrina's frequent visits to check on the adoption process had gotten around. She doesn't know about you yet, Corbin admitted. We're waiting for the right time to tell her. Is it because I'm not a baby? Leah's voice was small now, her ice cream forgotten. No, sweetheart. I reached across the table to take her hand. It's because you're so special that we want to make sure everything is perfect when we tell her. She's going to love you just as much as we do. Promise? Promise, Corbin and I said together. The rest of the afternoon passed too quickly. Back at the children's home, Leah hugged us both tightly before running inside to tell Maria about her 3-scoop ice cream adventure. We were halfway to the car when I heard Sabrina's voice. Well, well, what a surprise finding you here. She stood by her Mercedes, arms crossed, eyes sharp. My blood ran cold. Mom, what are you doing here? Corbin's voice cracked slightly. Following my instincts, she said, pushing away from her car. When you two kept sneaking off, I knew something was going on. But this, she gestured at the building behind us. This is what you've been hiding? Sabrina, we can explain. Explain what? That you're planning to adopt without even consulting me? That you're giving up on having a real family? She is real, I snapped, fury rising in my chest. Leah is more real and more precious than any of your fertility rituals or family planning schemes. Leah? Sabrina's eyes widened. You're not serious? That troubled little girl from brunch? Is this some kind of revenge because I suggested fostering her cousin? They're not even related, Corbin cut in. It's a different Leah, Mom, our Leah, and we're going to be her parents, whether you approve or not. Sabrina's face hardened. We'll see about that. I won't stand by and watch you make this mistake. There are other solutions, better solutions. No, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite my racing heart. There aren't, because Leah isn't a solution. She's our daughter, and if you can't accept that, then maybe it's time for you to go home. She stared at us for a long moment before getting into her car. As she drove away, I could see her on her phone, already making calls. She's going to try to stop this, Corbin said quietly. Let her try, I replied, thinking of Leah's smile, her ice cream-covered nose, her dreams of a room filled with books. Some things are worth fighting for. She's talking to divorce lawyers, Lucille said, sliding her phone across the cafe table to show me the text from her cousin who worked at a prestigious law firm. Apparently, she's looking into ways to prove you're destroying the family legacy or some nonsense. I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold. Can she even do that? We're both adults. She's trying to build a case that you've manipulated Corbin away from having real children. Lucille made air quotes with her fingers. It's ridiculous, but she's got money and connections. My phone buzzed. Another message from Sabrina. Having dinner at the house tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. We need to discuss the future of this family. She's not even staying at our house anymore, but she's still acting like she owns it. I groaned, showing Lucille the message. Then maybe it's time, Lucille said, leaning forward. Tell her everything, on your terms, before she digs up the information herself. Corbin's terrified it'll destroy his relationship with her forever. And what about your relationship with Leah? What about her future? The image of Leah's hopeful face flashed through my mind. We were supposed to visit her again tomorrow, but Sabrina's meddling was threatening everything. You're right, I said, standing up. I need to talk to Corbin. I found him in his office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. Mom's called 6 times today, he said without looking up. I know what we need to do, I said, perching on his desk. We need to tell her, tonight, everything. He finally met my eyes. She'll never forgive us. Maybe not, but Leah needs us to be brave for her. His phone rang again, Sabrina's face lighting up the screen. This time, he answered, "Yes, Mom, we'll be there. No, just us. Because it's our house." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Fine, see you at 7. "She's bringing reinforcements," he sighed after hanging up. "Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia." "Perfect," I said, surprising him. "Let's invite Freddie too, and Lucille. If she wants witnesses, we'll have our own." The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Freddie arrived early, helping me stress clean the house while simultaneously trying to calm me down. "Remember when we were kids," he said, dusting the mantel, "and you were terrified to tell Mom you'd broken her favorite vase? But when you finally did, it wasn't nearly as bad as you'd imagined? This is slightly bigger than a vase, Fred. Same principle, though. Rip off the Band-Aid." The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Sabrina swept in with her entourage, taking in the extra place settings with narrowed eyes. "I thought I said family only," she said, spotting Lucille arranging wine glasses. "They are family," I replied firmly. "The kind we choose." Dinner was excruciating. Sabrina kept making pointed comments about bloodlines and family traditions, while Uncle Robert nodded sagely and Aunt Patricia clicked her tongue in disapproval. Finally, as dessert was served, Sabrina cleared her throat. "I've been doing some research." "So have we," Corbin interrupted, standing up. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Mom, there's something you need to know." "Sit down, dear. I'm not finished." "No, Mom. For once, you're going to listen." He walked to his briefcase by the door and pulled out a folder. "Danielle and I are adopting. We've been approved, and we've found our daughter. Her name is Leah. She's 8 years old, and she's amazing." The silence was absolute. Sabrina's face went from red to white to red again. "This is what you've been hiding?" she finally managed. "This is why you've been sneaking around?" "We wanted to do this our way," I said, moving to stand beside Corbin. "Without pressure, without judgment." "Without family, you mean?" she spat. "Without considering what this would do to our legacy, our name." "A name isn't a legacy," Freddie cut in. "Love is, and they've got plenty of that." "You don't understand." Sabrina turned to her siblings. "They're making a horrible mistake. There are treatments, specialists." "Show them the picture," Lucille said quietly. Corbin pulled out the photo of Leah at the park. Her face split in a huge grin as she sat between us on the swings. "This is your granddaughter, Mom, if you'll have her." Aunt Patricia gasped softly. Uncle Robert leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. But Sabrina stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need time to think," she said stiffly. This is not what I wanted for you." "It's not about what you want anymore," Corbin said, his voice breaking slightly. "It's about what Leah needs, what we need." She gathered her purse and coat, ignoring her siblings' protests. At the door, she turned back one last time. "You'll regret this decision," she said quietly. "Mark my words." As the door closed behind her, I felt Corbin's hand find mine. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. For Leah. The kitchen timer chimed as I pulled another batch of cookies from the oven. Stress baking had taken over the house. Cookies, brownies, and a cake all lined the counters. Tonight's family dinner would either be a breakthrough or a breakdown, and I was preparing for both. "Those smell amazing," Freddie said, snatching a warm cookie. "But I think you've made enough to feed an army." "I need everything to be perfect," I said, arranging cookies on a plate. "Leah's coming tonight, her first dinner here with the whole family." "Except Sabrina," he reminded me gently. "Have you heard from her at all?" "Radio silence for 3 days, but she's been busy." I showed him my phone, screenshots from various family members of Sabrina's social media posts about preserving family bloodlines and the importance of biological connections. Classy, Freddie muttered, reaching for another cookie. The doorbell rang, making me jump. That's too early. Nobody's supposed to be here for 2 hours. But when I opened the door, there stood Sabrina. We need to talk, she said, brushing past me into the house. She stopped short at the sight of all the baked goods. What's all this? Family dinner tonight, I said carefully. Leah's coming. Her face tightened. That's actually why I'm here. I've been doing some research on that girl. Her name is Leah, I corrected, and she's in the system because her mother is in prison, Sabrina cut in. Did you know that? What kind of genetic predisposition might she have? What behaviors might surface? Get out. Freddie's voice was cold. I hadn't even noticed him following us into the hallway. This is family business, Sabrina snapped. Exactly, and you're trying to destroy a family before it even has a chance to begin. The front door opened again, and Corbin walked in, stopping short at the scene before him. Mom, what are you doing here? Trying to save you from a terrible mistake. She pulled papers from her purse. I have documentation about the girl's background, her family history. Stop, Corbin said, his voice firm. Just stop. We know Leah's story. She told us herself because she trusts us, because we're going to be her parents. But she's not. If you finish that sentence, I cut in, you'll never meet your granddaughter. Is that what you want? Sabrina's mouth snapped shut. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. She's coming for dinner tonight, Corbin said quietly. Stay. Meet her properly. Give her a chance. The silence stretched thin as Sabrina looked around, at the cookies cooling on racks, the fresh flowers on the table, the small welcome sign Corbin and I had made together. Fine, she said finally. I'll stay, but don't expect me to pretend this is ideal. The next 2 hours were tense. Lucille arrived early to help, shooting worried glances at Sabrina, who had positioned herself in the living room like a queen on her throne. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia came next, looking uncomfortable but determined to keep the peace. Then the doorbell rang one final time. Ms. Martinez stood there with Leah, who was wearing her favorite blue dress and clutching a drawing. She looked nervously past me at the crowd inside. It's okay, I said softly, kneeling down. Everyone's excited to meet you. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, immediately spotting Corbin. Her face lit up as she ran to show him her drawing, a picture of all of us, including a dog she hoped we might get someday. And who might this be? Sabrina's voice cut through the moment. She had risen from her chair, studying Leah intently. Leah straightened up, meeting Sabrina's gaze with surprising steadiness. I'm Leah. I like your necklace. Something shifted in Sabrina's expression. Thank you. It was my grandmother's. Did she give it to you? Like a family thing? Yes, exactly like that. Cool. Maybe someday I'll have family things too. Leah looked at me hopefully. Right? Before I could answer, Sabrina spoke again, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You already do, dear. That drawing you're holding, that's a family thing. The tension in the room eased slightly. Leah beamed, then surprised everyone by walking over to Sabrina. Want to see it? I put you in it too. You're the one in the fancy dress, next to the dog we don't have yet. A small laugh escaped Sabrina's lips. Well, perhaps we should discuss this dog situation over dinner. I happen to know an excellent breeder. Mom, Corbin warned, but he was smiling. What? If I'm to be a grandmother, I should at least have some input on the family pet. As everyone moved toward the dining room, I caught Freddie's eye. He gave me a thumbs up, mouthing, "Told you so," before grabbing the plate of cookies to bring to the table. Maybe, just maybe, this would work after all. The dinner started peacefully enough. Leah charmed everyone with stories about her favorite books, while Sabrina maintained a polite, if reserved, demeanor, but I could feel the storm brewing beneath the surface. "So, Leah," Sabrina said during a lull in conversation, setting down her fork with precision, "tell me about your biological family." The table went silent. Leah's hand froze halfway to her mouth, her spoon trembling slightly. "Mom," Corbin warned, but Sabrina pressed on. "It's a reasonable question. We should all know what we're getting into here." "What we're getting into?" I felt my voice rising. "She's not a business investment, Sabrina." Leah put down her spoon carefully. "It's okay," she said, looking directly at Sabrina. "My first mom made some bad choices. She's in prison. My first dad left before I was born, but Danielle and Corbin chose me. That's better than being born to someone, isn't it? Being chosen?" The silence that followed was deafening. Freddie reached over and squeezed Leah's shoulder. "Being chosen," Sabrina repeated slowly, her voice taking on an edge. "Is that what you think this is? A noble rescue mission?" "That's enough." Corbin stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "No, it's not enough." Sabrina's voice rose. "This child needs professional help, not amateur parents playing house. And you two," she pointed between Corbin and me, "you're using her to spite me, to prove some point about family values." "Spite you?" I laughed incredulously. "This has nothing to do with you. We love her. She's our daughter." "She is not your daughter." Sabrina slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "She's a troubled child with a criminal for a mother, and you're making a terrible mistake." A small sob broke through the tension. Leah had tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pushing back from the table. "I shouldn't have come." "Leah, wait." I reached for her, but she was already running toward the front door. "Now look what you've done," Sabrina huffed. "This is exactly what I meant about emotional instability." "Shut up." The words came from Corbin, shocking everyone into silence. "Just shut up, Mom. For once in your life, stop talking." I found Leah on the front porch, curled up on the swing. She looked so small, so vulnerable, and my heart broke. "I'm sorry," she said again as I sat beside her. "I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything, sweetheart. You made it better. You make everything better." Corbin appeared in the doorway, followed by Freddie and Lucille. Behind them, I could hear Sabrina's voice rising again. "If you do this, if you choose this path, then what?" Corbin turned to face his mother. "You'll disown me? Cut me off. Go ahead, because I choose them. I choose my family." Thunder rumbled overhead, perfectly punctuating his words. Sabrina's face went pale. "I've spent my whole life trying to please you," Corbin continued, "trying to live up to your expectations. But look at what your expectations have done." He gestured to Leah, still crying softly on the swing. "She's 8 years old, Mom. She's a child who needs love, not judgment. And if you can't see that, if you can't accept her, then you're the one who needs help, not her." Rain started to fall, fat drops hitting the porch roof with hollow thuds. "I think it's time for you to leave," I said, standing up. "And don't come back until you're ready to be a real grandmother." "This isn't over," Sabrina said, gathering her things. "You're making a huge mistake." "No," Leah's voice was small but clear. "They're making a family, and you're ruining it." Sabrina stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked to her car without another word. The rain was falling harder now, matching the tears on Leah's cheeks. "Did I mess up?" she asked, looking between Corbin and me. "Will she hate me forever?" "Come here," Corbin said, opening his arms. She hesitated for just a moment before running into them. You didn't mess up anything, and no matter what happens with my mom, you're stuck with us now, okay? She nodded against his chest. Promise? Promise, we said together. Inside, Freddie was already ordering pizza. Because nobody finished dinner, and growing families need food. Lucille was cleaning up the dining room, humming softly. Can we eat in the living room? Leah asked hopefully. Like a picnic? Absolutely, I said, watching as her smile slowly returned. And maybe after, we can look at some paint samples for your room? And dog pictures, she added, making everyone laugh. As we settled in for our impromptu living room picnic, the storm raged outside, but in here, in this moment, with Leah tucked between us on the couch, everything felt exactly right. Sometimes the families we choose are stronger than the ones we're born into, and sometimes it takes a storm to wash away the old and make room for something new to grow. Ready? I asked, adjusting Leah's backpack straps. Her first day of school as officially Leah Palmer had finally arrived. What if the other kids ask about my last name being different now? She fidgeted with her new pencil case. Tell them you got upgraded, Freddie suggested, snapping pictures with his phone. Like a software update, but cooler. The adoption had been finalized yesterday, marked by tears, hugs, and enough cake to feed an army. Sabrina hadn't attended, but she'd sent a card. Progress of sorts. There's my favorite student, Ms. Martinez called from the school entrance. She'd helped arrange Leah's transfer to this school, ensuring a smooth transition. As Leah ran to hug her former social worker, I noticed a familiar Mercedes pulling into the parking lot. Corbin tensed beside me. Sabrina stepped out, clutching a small gift bag. She looked different, less polished, more human somehow. I found this in the attic, she said without preamble, holding out the bag to Leah. It was Corbin's first day of school gift. I thought you should have it. Inside was a worn leather bookmark, engraved with the words, "Every story matters." It's beautiful, Leah breathed, running her fingers over the letters. Your father used to read under the covers with a flashlight, Sabrina said softly, just like you do. How did you know I've been talking to Ms. Martinez? Sabrina glanced at the social worker, who nodded encouragingly. Learning about you, about adoption, about what makes a real family. The school bell rang, making us all jump. I should go, Leah said, carefully tucking the bookmark into her favorite book. She hugged Corbin and me, then hesitated before quickly hugging Sabrina too. We watched her walk into the school, her new backpack bouncing with each step. She looks just like you when she smiles, Sabrina said suddenly, looking at me. Not physically, but the way her whole face lights up. That's all you. Mom, Corbin started, but she held up a hand. Let me finish, please. She took a deep breath. I was wrong about everything. I was so focused on bloodlines and traditions that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. A little girl who needed love, and two people with more than enough love to give. It's not that simple, I said, thinking of Leah's tears that night at dinner. No, it's not. I have a lot to make up for. But she pulled out another gift bag, larger this time. Maybe we could start with this? Inside was a photo album. The first page showed Corbin at 8 years old, grinning with missing front teeth. I thought Leah might like to see what her dad looked like at her age, Sabrina explained. And maybe we could add new photos, create a real family album. Before anyone could respond, the school door burst open and Leah came running back out. I forgot something, she called, racing toward us. What did you forget, sweetie? I asked, but she ran right past me to Sabrina. Thank you for the bookmark, she said, hugging her properly this time. And I'm glad you came today. Does this mean you're really my grandmother now? Sabrina's carefully applied makeup smudged as tears fell. "If you'll have me. Only if you promise no more yelling," Leah said seriously. "And you have to come to my room painting party this weekend. We're doing it in purple." "Purple?" Sabrina looked horrified for a moment before catching herself. "I mean, purple is lovely. And we're getting a dog," Leah added with a mischievous grin. "One step at a time," Corbin laughed, ruffling her hair. "Back to class, kiddo." As Leah disappeared back into the school, Sabrina turned to us. "A dog? Really?" "Already adopted," I admitted. "We pick him up tomorrow." "Let me guess. Leah chose him?" "Actually," Corbin smiled, "he chose her, just like she chose us, just like we chose each other." Sabrina nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand that chosen families might be the strongest kind." The second bell rang, and Ms. Martinez gestured that she needed to go inside. "I should go too," Sabrina said. "But maybe we could have dinner this weekend, after the painting party? I promised to behave." "We'd like that," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. As we walked back to our cars, I spotted Leah through her classroom window. She was showing her bookmark to her seatmate, animated and happy. When she saw us, she waved enthusiastically. "She's gonna be okay, isn't she?" Sabrina asked softly. "Better than okay," Corbin replied. "She's going to be extraordinary." We all waved back at Leah, four very different people united by love for one remarkable little girl. Sometimes the hardest battles end not with a bang, but with a bookmark, a purple room, and the promise of new beginnings. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma works in mysterious ways, turning even the most stubborn hearts toward love.
I never thought I'd hear my mother-in-law plotting to take my daughter away from me. But there I was, frozen in the hallway of my own home, listening to her poison my husband's mind. "Raymond, darling, you have to face facts. Andrea isn't stable enough to raise Tori. Look how she handled the birthday party today, completely overwhelmed by a few guests. What kind of mother can't even manage her child's first birthday?" My name is Andrea, and that moment changed everything. I'd spent the last hour cleaning up after Tori's party while Martina held court in our living room, criticizing every decision I'd made, from the organic cake to the modest decorations. Now I understood why she'd insisted on staying after everyone else left. "Mom, Andrea's just tired. She works full-time and—" Exactly my point. A proper mother would be home with her child. Your sister managed it beautifully with her 3. I gripped the wall, my knuckles white. The party had been lovely until Martina arrived with her entourage of society friends, turning my intimate celebration into what felt like a society event. Tori had been overwhelmed by the crowd, crying until I took her upstairs for a quiet moment. "Remember how she disappeared with Tori during the party?" Martina's voice dripped with manufactured concern. "That's not normal behavior, Raymond. A child needs stability, structure. Your father and I could provide that." My blood ran cold. I'd known from the day Raymond and I married that Martina disapproved of me, the middle-class teacher who'd stolen her precious son from the ranks of eligible society women. But this was different. This was calculated. "I don't know, Mom." Raymond's hesitation made my heart sink. Why wasn't he defending me more strongly? I stepped into the doorway, making my presence known. I think I should be part of any conversation about my daughter's welfare. Martina's perfectly made-up face showed no embarrassment at being caught. Instead, she smiled that practiced smile I'd seen her use at countless charity events. "Andrea, darling, we were just discussing Tori's future. As grandparents, we naturally want what's best for her." "What's best for her is her mother," I said, moving to stand beside Raymond. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Of course, dear. No one's suggesting otherwise." Martina stood, smoothing her designer dress. "I simply pointed out that with your challenging schedule, you might appreciate more support. That's all." The way she said challenging schedule made my job sound like a character flaw. I'd worked hard for my position at the elementary school, proud to be teaching third grade while raising my daughter. I managed just fine, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Tori is happy, healthy, and loved. Is she? Martina raised an eyebrow. I noticed she seemed quite distressed today. And last week at my house, she was perfectly calm all afternoon. Perhaps she responds better to a more structured environment? That's when I noticed the phone in her hand, recording our conversation. My stomach lurched as I realized this wasn't just casual criticism. She was building a case. Raymond, I turned to my husband. Could you please ask your mother to leave? It's been a long day, and Tori will be up from her nap soon. He shifted uncomfortably. Mom's just trying to help, Andrea. Maybe we should consider... Consider what? I cut him off. Letting your mother take over raising our daughter? Martina gathered her designer purse, the picture of wounded dignity. I can see you're too emotional for a reasonable discussion right now. Raymond, we'll talk more later. She paused at the door. Do think about what I said. After all, we all want what's best for precious Tori. After she left, I rounded on Raymond. How could you let her talk about me like that? She means well, he said weakly. You know how she is about family. Family? I laughed bitterly. She's been trying to push me out since day one, and now she wants our daughter? Upstairs, Tori began to cry, probably roused by our voices. I started toward the stairs, but Raymond caught my arm. Maybe Mom has a point about your stress levels, he said quietly. You have been on edge lately. I jerked away from him, suddenly seeing everything clearly. This wasn't just Martina's usual interference. This was the beginning of something bigger. She'd been laying the groundwork for months. The concerned phone calls to Raymond, the subtle criticisms of my parenting, the offers to take Tori for extended visits. As I climbed the stairs to comfort my daughter, I made a silent vow. I would fight for my family with everything I had. Martina Schmidt had no idea who she was dealing with. Looking back now, I realized that was the moment everything changed. The day I stopped trying to please my mother-in-law and started planning how to save my daughter from her clutches. I just didn't know then how far Martina would go, or how far I would have to go to stop her. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I stared at the court documents inside. My fingers trembled as I read the words again. Temporary custody granted to Martina. The rest of the text blurred through my tears. 3 months had passed since Tori's birthday party, and everything had unraveled with frightening speed. Raymond had moved out 2 weeks ago, claiming he needed space to think. Now I knew exactly what kind of thinking he'd been doing. My phone buzzed. Martina's number. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. The police will be accompanying me to collect Tori at 2 p.m. Please have her things packed. This will be easier if you cooperate. I glanced at the clock. 11:23 a.m. Less than 3 hours. You can't do this. I typed back, my fingers shaking. She's my daughter. The court order says otherwise, dear. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I called Raymond immediately. He answered on the 4th ring. How could you? I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. Your mother? Really? Andrea, please, he sighed. It's temporary, just until you get better. Get better? There's nothing wrong with me. Mom showed me the videos, the outbursts, the emotional instability. Videos she deliberately provoked. She's been planning this for months. Listen, he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. Mom has resources. She can give Tori everything we can't right now. The best schools, activities, stability. She has stability. She has love. She has her mother. Who works full-time and can barely afford... Don't you dare. I cut him off. Don't you dare make this about money. Your mother's been manipulating you since day one, and you're too blind to see it. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the window, I saw Abigail, Martina's closest friend, standing on my porch. What fresh hell was this? I have to go, I told Raymond. But this isn't over. I opened the door, ready for battle, but Abigail's face wasn't wearing its usual society smile. Can I come in? She asked quietly. There's something you need to know. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Abigail perched on the edge of my couch, looking uncomfortable in my modest living room. Martina doesn't know I'm here, she said. But I had to warn you. She's been planning this for almost a year. What? Abigail pulled out her phone, showing me a series of text messages. She started gathering evidence last Christmas, recording your conversations, documenting every time Tori cried or you seemed stressed. She has a whole file of carefully edited videos making you look unstable. My legs gave out, and I sank into a chair. Why are you telling me this? Because she did the same thing to her sister-in-law 15 years ago. That family moved across the country to escape her. I can't watch it happen again. Upstairs, I heard Tori singing to herself as she played with her dolls. The sound nearly broke me. What am I supposed to do? I whispered. She has money, connections, everything. Fight smart, not hard, Abigail said, standing. Martina's weakness is her reputation. Everything she does is about maintaining the perfect image. She headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Andrea. She's planning a big charity gala next month. All her social circle will be there. Might be worth getting an invitation. After she left, I ran upstairs to Tori's room. She looked up from her dolls with that bright smile that made everything worthwhile. Mommy, look, Princess Sparkle is having a tea party. I sat down beside her, pulling her close. Baby, we need to pack some things. You're going to stay with Grandma for a little while. But why? Her lower lip trembled. Just for a little bit, while Mommy takes care of some things. But I promise you, I'm going to fix this. When Martina arrived with the police, I was ready. I handed over Tori's favorite stuffed rabbit, her special blanket, and my heart. I'll see you soon, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging her tight. Martina's triumphant smile as she led my daughter away told me everything I needed to know. She thought she'd won. But Abigail's visit had given me something precious. Hope and a plan. As I watched the car drive away, I pulled out my phone and Googled Martina's annual spring charity gala. Time to get myself an invitation to the social event of the season. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Just sign here to volunteer for the spring charity gala, the elderly woman said, sliding the form across the desk. We're always looking for new faces. 2 weeks of strategizing had led me to this moment. The local community center, where Martina's sister Eliana coordinated volunteer activities, was my way in. I'd changed my appearance just enough. Darker hair, glasses, and clothes that screamed eager social climber rather than grieving mother. Thank you, I smiled, signing with slightly altered handwriting. I've heard such wonderful things about the gala. Oh? Eliana looked up, studying me more carefully. My cousin attended last year. She couldn't stop talking about how elegantly Mrs. Schmidt handled everything. Eliana's expression shifted subtly. Yes, my sister does have a talent for handling things. Something in her tone made me look closer. There was a story there. I'm just excited to be involved, I continued, even if it's just arranging flowers or serving drinks. Actually, Eliana said, we need someone to help coordinate the silent auction. Previous experience? 3 years organizing fundraisers for my daughter's... I stopped, swallowing hard. For the elementary school. Eliana's eyes softened. You have a daughter? Had, I whispered, the pain in my voice entirely real. I lost her recently. It wasn't technically a lie. I had lost Tori, just not the way Eliana might assume. I'm so sorry. She touched my hand. I know something about losing family. Would you like to get coffee? The cafe next door makes excellent lattes. 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner booth. Eliana stirred her coffee thoughtfully. My sister, she said suddenly, has always been obsessed with perfection. The perfect family, the perfect image, the perfect control. I held my breath, waiting. Years ago, Eliana shook her head. Never mind. The past is past. But be careful working with her. Martina can be intense about her projects. Does she help with the auction? Oh yes, she oversees everything, especially since she got custody of her granddaughter. I gripped my cup tighter. Granddaughter? Yes, poor thing. Apparently the mother was unstable. Eliana trailed off, frowning. Though honestly, I've met that little girl. She asked for her mother constantly. My heart clenched. What does Mrs. Schmidt say about that? She changes the subject, just like she did when... Eliana stopped again, looking troubled. When what? She leaned forward. Can you keep a secret? Years ago, Martina did something similar with our brother's wife, convinced everyone she was unfit. That family fled to Canada to escape her influence. I haven't seen my nieces in 15 years. My hands shook so badly I had to set down my cup. Why didn't you stop her? I tried. But Martina, she's very good at twisting things, making you doubt what you see. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She touched my arm. Are you all right? You've gone pale. Fine, I managed. Just reminded me of something. Eliana studied me for a long moment. Then her eyes widened slightly. Oh my God, she whispered. You're her, the mother. I froze, ready to bolt, but her hand gripped mine tighter. Don't worry, she said quietly. I should have seen it sooner. The timing, the story about your daughter. She pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a photo of Tori from yesterday, looking sad while Martina posed her in front of a piano. She's not happy, Eliana said, and neither was I, watching history repeat itself. Please, I whispered. Don't tell Martina you know. Tell her? Eliana laughed bitterly. I've been waiting years for someone to stand up to her. The silent auction position is yours. It'll put you in direct contact with her social circle. Just be careful. Martina's not above destroying anyone who threatens her perfect world. As I left the community center, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Eliana. Dinner at my house tomorrow? I have photos from other events you might find interesting, including some of Martina's more unguarded moments. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Finally, I had an ally. And more importantly, I had access to Martina's world. That night, I added Eliana's name to my growing map of connections and evidence. Below Abigail's warning about the gala, beside the note about Martina's pattern with other families, soon I'd have enough to expose the truth. Soon, I'd have my daughter back. But first, I had a silent auction to coordinate. She's filing adoption papers next week, Abigail whispered, glancing nervously around the empty coffee shop. Once those go through, you'll never see Tori again. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. She can't do that. Raymond would never. Raymond signed the preliminary paperwork yesterday. Martina convinced him it's the only way to ensure Tori has a stable future. 1 month of infiltrating Martina's social circle had yielded countless stories of manipulation, but this was different. This was endgame. I need proof, I said. Something concrete. Check your email. I recorded Martina discussing it at yesterday's committee meeting. She doesn't know I keep my phone running during these sessions. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. The audio file was there. Martina's voice crystal clear as she bragged about her plans to finally make things official with her granddaughter. Why are you helping me? I asked Abigail. She twisted her wedding ring. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Different situation, different child, same Martina. I was too scared to fight back then. I've regretted it ever since. The cafe door chimed. A woman with a press badge walked in, catching my eye with deliberate intent. Zara, the local journalist Eliana had connected me with. Ladies, she said, sliding into our booth. I hear we have something interesting to discuss. I played the audio file. Zara's eyebrows rose higher with each passing second. This is gold, she said, but we need more. Photos, witnesses, a pattern of behavior. I have photos, Abigail said. Lots of them. Martina when she thinks no one's watching. The way she treats Tori when the cameras aren't rolling. And I have witnesses, I added. 3 families she's done this to before. Eliana helped me track them down. Zara pulled out her notebook. Tell me everything. For the next hour, we built the case. Abigail's photos showed Martina's mask slipping. Harsh words, grabbed arms, tearful children. My witnesses painted a pattern of manipulation spanning decades. Zara scribbled furiously. This is bigger than a custody battle, she said finally. This is about power, control, and systematic emotional abuse hidden behind society's perfect veneer. My phone buzzed. A text from Eliana. Emergency. Come to my house now. I have to go, I said, standing. But Zara, how soon can you run this story? Give me a week to fact-check everything. But when it hits? She smiled grimly. Martina won't know what hit her. 15 minutes later, I rushed into Eliana's living room to find her pacing. Look at this. She thrust her tablet at me. It was an email from Martina to her lawyer, accidentally copied to Eliana. Once the adoption is final, we'll move to Europe. I've already enrolled Tori in a Swiss boarding school. The distance will help her forget all about. She's planning to leave the country, I whispered. Next month, Eliana confirmed, right after the gala. The gala. An idea formed. That's where we'll stop her. Everyone who matters will be there. Her whole carefully constructed world in one room. She'll never let you in. She won't know it's me. I'm on the planning committee, remember? And I have these. I pulled out the donor list I'd been working on. Every major player in her social circle, all in one place. Eliana's eyes lit up. The silent auction. We could set up a presentation, something that seems like it's celebrating her. Until it doesn't. I finished. But we'll need help. You have it, said a voice from the doorway. Abigail stood there with Zara. We followed you. Hope you don't mind. Mind? I laughed. I need you both. Zara's story, Abigail's photos, Eliana's insider knowledge. And your courage, Eliana added. We can do this. We spent the next hour planning. Each person had a role, each piece of evidence its place in the revelation to come. As we finished, my phone chimed with a video message from Raymond. Tori sat at Martina's grand piano, looking lost as Martina forced her small hands through complex scales. Mommy does it better. Tori's voice wavered. I want Mommy. Mommy's not here. Martina's sharp voice replied. I'm your family now. I looked up at my unlikely allies, the society friend, the whistleblower sister, the crusading journalist. 2 weeks until the gala. Let's make them count. Zara raised her coffee cup in a toast. To bringing down the queen of manipulation. To saving Tori, I corrected. To justice, Eliana and Abigail said together. The pieces were in place. Now we just had to survive until the gala. Andrea, we need to talk. Raymond's voice behind me nearly made me drop the auction catalog I was organizing at the community center. I turned slowly, grateful for my disguise. I don't know who. Drop the act, he said quietly. Eliana told me everything. My heart stopped. She would when she saw what I found in Mom's study. He pulled out a thick folder. Bank statements, court documents, letters to her lawyer dating back to before Tori was even born. She's been planning this for years. I glanced around the empty room. Why are you here? Because I was an idiot, he said, running a hand through his hair. Because I let her manipulate me just like she's done to everyone else. Because our daughter cries herself to sleep every night asking for you. My hands clenched. And you're just now noticing? I'm trying to make it right. He opened the folder. These prove she's been transferring large sums to the judge who granted her custody. There's more. Documentation of her threatening other families, proof she bribed witnesses. Why should I trust you now? Because I found this. He pulled out a document with tomorrow's date. She's filing for full adoption and immediate permission to leave the country. Once that goes through, we'll never see Tori again. I sank into a chair. We're planning something at the gala. I know. Eliana told me. But you need these documents to make it stick legally. He placed the folder in front of me. I've made copies. Use them. Raymond. I studied his face. She's your mother. Are you sure? She stopped being my mother the moment she tried to steal my daughter. He headed for the door, then turned back. Andrea? I'm sorry. For everything. After he left, I called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, everyone gathered at Eliana's house. These are perfect, Zara said, flipping through the documents. Combined with our other evidence, this is nuclear. But we have to move fast. Abigail added, if Martina suspects anything... She doesn't, Eliana interrupted. She's too focused on the gala. It's her moment to show off her perfect family before whisking Tori away to Switzerland. I spread the evidence across the table. Raymond's documents, Abigail's photos, witness statements, bank records, Zara's draft article. Walk me through the plan again, I said. Zara pointed to her laptop. I've prepared a video presentation, supposedly highlighting Martina's charitable work, but halfway through it transitions to show her true nature. Witness testimonies, surveillance footage, everything. I've arranged the seating chart, Abigail added. All her victims' families will be in the front row. They're flying in specially. The tech team's on board, Eliana said. They'll lock down the exits when the presentation starts. No one leaves until it's done. And I've alerted certain law enforcement contacts. Zara smiled. They'll be there to handle any legal implications. My phone buzzed, a text from Raymond. Mom's showing off Tori to her friends again. She's exhausted, but Mom won't let her rest. I showed them the message. We have to end this. 2 days until the gala, Eliana said. Everything's ready. Almost everything, I corrected, pulling out a small box. I need one more favor. Inside was a silver locket, Tori's favorite, with our picture inside. I'd managed to slip it to her once during a supervised visit, but Martina had confiscated it. Can someone make sure she gets this before the gala? She needs to know Mommy's coming for her. Abigail took the locket. I'm having tea with them tomorrow. I'll find a way. As we finalized details, another text came through, this time from an unknown number. It was a photo of Tori sleeping, clutching her old stuffed rabbit, tears still wet on her cheeks. The caption read, She needs her mom. Don't fail tomorrow. I looked up at my allies. My friends now, really. We won't fail. No, Eliana agreed. We won't. For Tori, Abigail said. For every child Martina's tried to steal, Zara added. For justice, I finished. We worked late into the night, checking and double-checking every detail. When I finally left, Eliana hugged me tight. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow we prepare. The next day we take my sister down. Driving home, I passed Martina's mansion. A light was on in Tori's window. I could almost imagine her there, waiting, hoping. Hold on, baby, I whispered. Mommy's coming, and this time, no one's going to stop me. The gala was coming. Our trap was set. And Martina had no idea she was about to lose everything she'd worked so hard to steal. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and society's elite. I adjusted my wig and glasses, clipboard clutched to my chest as I directed caterers and checked sound equipment. No one looked twice at the efficient event coordinator in sensible heels. Everything's ready, Zara murmured as she passed, pretending to check her press credentials. The video's queued up. I nodded slightly, then froze as Martina swept in with Tori. My daughter wore a frilly pink dress that she would have hated under normal circumstances. Her small hand clutched the silver locket we'd managed to get to her. Smile, darling, Martina commanded, steering Tori toward a group of photographers. Show everyone how happy you are with grandmother. Tori's eyes scanned the room, and for a heart-stopping moment, they met mine. I pressed a finger to my lips. She gave the tiniest nod, then turned back to the cameras. Places, everyone, I called out, my voice disguised with a slight accent. The presentation begins in 20 minutes. Abigail appeared at my elbow. The families are all here. Front row, just as planned. And the police? Plain clothes scattered throughout. They're ready. I watched Martina work the room, showing off Tori like a prize poodle. Raymond stood near the bar, looking increasingly uncomfortable as his mother bragged about their fresh start in Switzerland. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced at exactly 8 o'clock. Please take your seats. Mrs. Schmidt's special tribute presentation is about to begin. Martina preened as she led Tori to their seats of honor. The lights dimmed and the screen lit up with carefully curated photos of Martina's charitable works. For 20 years, the narrator intoned, Martina Schmidt has been a pillar of our community. I slipped through the crowd to the tech booth. Now, I whispered to the operator. The screen flickered. Suddenly, instead of charity galas, there was Martina screaming at a terrified Tori for spilling juice on her designer rug. Then Martina threatening one of her previous victims. Photo after photo, video after video, each more damning than the last. Gasps filled the room. Martina leaped to her feet. Stop this immediately. Security, I called out. But our planted security team just stood watching. The evidence kept coming. Bank statements showing bribes, court documents revealing her pattern of manipulation, testimonies from families she'd destroyed. Who's responsible for this? Martina shrieked, spinning around wildly. I stepped into the light, removing my wig and glasses. I am. Andrea, she hissed. How dare you? No. I cut her off, my voice carrying through the microphone I'd concealed. How dare you? How dare you steal children from loving parents? How dare you traumatize innocent families? How dare you try to take my daughter? Security, remove this woman. They won't help you. Zara stood up, press badge gleaming. They're with us, just like the police officers scattered throughout this room. Tori broke free from Martina's grip and ran to me. I scooped her up, holding her close as she sobbed, "Mommy, mommy," into my shoulder. This is absurd. Martina tried to laugh, but her society friends were already backing away. These are obviously fabrications. Are they? One of the front row guests stood up. Like you fabricated evidence against me 15 years ago? Another rose. Like you threatened my family? Like you tried to steal my grandson? A third voice called out. Martina's perfect mask cracked. Raymond, tell them. Tell them I only wanted what was best. What was best? Raymond stepped forward. Was it best when you bribed Judge Harrison? When you planned to smuggle my daughter out of the country? When you destroyed evidence of Andrea's fitness as a mother? I have proof of everything, Zara announced. My expose runs tomorrow. Every detail, every victim, every manipulation. Martina lunged for Tori, but two plainclothes officers intercepted her. Martina Schmidt, one said, producing handcuffs. You're under arrest for conspiracy, evidence tampering, judicial bribery. As they led her away, still screaming about ungrateful children and her ruined reputation, I held Tori closer. Is it over, Mommy? She whispered. Yes, baby. You're coming home. Raymond approached cautiously. Andrea, Not now, I said quietly. We'll talk later. Right now, our daughter needs us both. The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Reporters pushing forward, society friends fleeing the scandal, Martina's victims sharing their stories with police. Eliana and Abigail appeared beside us. Let's get you out the back, Eliana said. The media can wait. As we slipped away, I heard Martina's final shriek. I gave you everything. I am everything. But she was wrong. She was nothing now. And we were finally free. The morning after the gala, my living room filled with police officers, lawyers, and child services representatives. Tori sat in my lap, refusing to let go even for a moment. Mrs. Schmidt's being held without bail, Detective Morris explained. The evidence of judicial tampering alone. Will I have to testify? I asked, stroking Tori's hair. Not likely. We've got dozens of witnesses, documented evidence, and 3 judges admitting to accepting bribes. She's looking at serious time. Raymond paced by the window, phone buzzing constantly. Her lawyers quit. The society boards voted to remove her from every committee. It's like watching a house of cards collapse. Mommy, Tori tugged at my sleeve. Can I show you what Grandma made me do? My heart clenched. Of course, baby. She led me to the piano we'd kept in the corner. Sitting down, her small fingers began moving mechanically through scales. 6 hours a day, she said quietly. If I made a mistake, she'd make me start over. She said it would make me perfect like her. Raymond stopped pacing. 6 hours? She told me it was just casual lessons. There's nothing casual about your mother, I said. Tori, honey, you never have to play again if you don't want to. Can I just play Twinkle Twinkle like you taught me? Of course. As Tori picked out the simple melody, smiling for the first time in weeks, the doorbell rang. Eliana and Abigail stood there with Zara. You need to see this, Zara said, holding up the morning paper. The headline screamed, Society Matriarch's Reign of Terror Exposed. It's going viral, Abigail added. 3 more families have come forward already. And that's not all. Eliana pulled out her phone. Listen to this voicemail Martina left me from jail. Martina's voice filled the room, raw with rage. You treacherous snake! My own sister! I made you what you are. I'll destroy you all. Eliana stopped the playback. There's more, but it gets worse. The police are adding witness intimidation charges. How's she handling jail? I couldn't help asking. Not well. Detective Morris smirked. Apparently orange isn't her color. Tori's piano playing stopped. Is Grandma going to jail forever? Raymond knelt beside her. She did some very bad things, sweetheart. She has to face the consequences. Like when I have to sit in timeout? Something like that. I managed, fighting back tears at her innocence. The child services representative approached. We've reviewed everything. Given the circumstances, we're recommending immediate restoration of full custody to Andrea, with supervised visitation for Raymond until the divorce proceedings. No, I interrupted. No supervision needed. Raymond was a victim too. He's still Tori's father. Raymond looked at me gratefully. I don't deserve your forgiveness. This isn't about deserving. It's about healing. All of us. Zara cleared her throat. Speaking of healing, the families Martina targeted want to meet. They're talking about starting a support group. Count us in, Raymond said firmly. It's time to break the cycle. Suddenly, Tori started playing again. Not scales or classical pieces, but a simple, happy tune she was making up on the spot. That's beautiful, I said. It's for you, Mommy, and Daddy, and Aunt Eliana and Miss Abigail and everyone who helped bring me home. The room fell silent except for her improvised melody. Even the police officers stopped their note-taking to listen. Out of the mouths of babes, Eliana whispered. Detective Morris stood. We'll need more statements later, but for now, spend time with your daughter. The DA's office will be in touch about the case. As people filed out, Abigail lingered. Andrea, thank you for doing what I couldn't all those years ago. Thank you for helping me do it. After everyone left, it was just the 3 of us, me, Raymond, and Tori, our broken little family starting to heal. Can we have pancakes? Tori asked. Grandma never let me have pancakes. We can have anything you want, Raymond said. Then I want pancakes with Mommy and Daddy. We moved to the kitchen, Tori directing us like a tiny conductor as we gathered ingredients. When she wasn't looking, Raymond touched my arm. I know I messed up. We'll talk later, I said. Right now, our daughter wants pancakes. As flour dusted the counter and giggles filled the air, I realized something. Martina had tried to create her version of a perfect family through control and manipulation. But here, in this messy kitchen with imperfect pancakes and genuine laughter, we'd found something better. We'd found truth. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as Martina emerged in handcuffs. Her designer outfit had been replaced by standard prison garb, her perfectly coiffed hair now stringy and gray at the roots. 20 years, Raymond whispered, squeezing my hand. No possibility of parole for 15. I watched my former mother-in-law being led to the prison transport. She caught my eye and mouthed something that looked like, "I'll destroy you." But the threat felt empty now. Ready to go home? I asked. Actually, he hesitated. I was hoping we could talk about that. We found a quiet cafe near the courthouse. Tori was at school, her real school, not the elite private academy Martina had forced her into. I've been offered a job, Raymond said. Here in town, heading up a nonprofit that helps families affected by parental alienation. That's wonderful. The thing is, he stirred his coffee endlessly. I've been staying at Eliana's, but that was temporary. And I know we're technically separated, but seeing you with Tori these past few weeks, watching you fight for her, I realized what I almost lost. What I want to fight for. Raymond, I'm not asking to move back in. I know I need to earn back your trust. But maybe we could try counseling? Start with family dinner once a week? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Zara. Turn on the news now. I pulled up the local station on my phone. Footage showed police raiding Martina's mansion. Evidence of decades of financial fraud, the reporter announced. Sources say Mrs. Schmidt had been embezzling from her own charities for years. In related news, 3 more judges have stepped down amid the growing corruption scandal. She fooled everyone, Raymond said quietly. Even me. Especially me. Not everyone, I corrected. Eliana knew. Abigail suspected. They just needed someone willing to stand up to her. Like you did. My phone buzzed again. A text from Tori's teacher. Thought you'd want to see this. The attached photo showed Tori at show and tell, proudly holding up the newspaper article about Martina's conviction. My mommy, the caption quoted, says sometimes the bravest thing is telling the truth, even when people don't want to hear it. Raymond's eyes welled up. She's right, and I need to tell you my truth. I love you, Andrea. I never stopped. I just lost my way for a while. I know, I said softly. But finding your way back isn't just about love. It's about trust, respect, standing together. Then let me stand with you now. The nonprofit needs a co-director. Someone who understands what families go through, who can help them fight back. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. In every sense. The cafe door chimed as Eliana and Abigail walked in. Sorry to interrupt, Eliana said, but you need to see this. She handed me a letter. It was from Martina's first victim, the sister-in-law who'd fled to Canada. We're starting a support network, Abigail explained, for all the families affected by Martina. They want you to lead it. Me? You're the one who brought her down, Eliana said. You gave everyone hope. I looked at Raymond, saw the same hope in his eyes. We could do it together, he said. Help other families heal while we heal our own. My phone lit up with another photo from Tori's teacher. This time, my daughter sat at a classroom piano, teaching another student the simple version of Twinkle, Twinkle she loved. The caption read, she said everyone deserves a chance to make their own kind of music. Yes, I said finally. To all of it. The nonprofit, the support network, the counseling, the family dinners. But we take it slow. As slow as you need, Raymond promised. Eliana raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings? To truth, Abigail added. To family, Raymond said. To justice, I finished. The real kind. Outside, the media was still buzzing about Martina's downfall, but it felt distant now. We had more important things to focus on. Healing families, rebuilding trust, and creating something genuine from the ashes of false perfection. Shall we go pick up our daughter? Raymond asked. I took his hand, feeling the weight of my journey in that simple gesture. Yes, let's go make some real music. As we left the cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw someone stronger than the woman who'd lost her daughter, braver than the mother who'd fought back, wiser than the wife who'd trusted too easily. I saw someone ready to build something true. And this time, no one could take it away.
The text message from my mother-in-law made my stomach drop. Family emergency meeting, tonight, 7 p.m. sharp, attendance mandatory. 10 years of marriage to Wyatt, and Kylie's messages still had the power to make me feel like that scared 22-year-old girl who first walked into their mansion. I'm Aliyah, and this is the story of how I went from being the family's supposed gold digger to becoming their unexpected salvation. You don't have to go, Wyatt said, loosening his tie as he walked into our bedroom. My mother's being dramatic again. I set my phone down and met his concerned gaze. When isn't she? But this time feels different. Different how? Just a feeling. I smoothed my blazer, checking my reflection. The young woman who'd once trembled before the mighty Bryants was gone. In her place stood someone else entirely, someone they had no idea existed. Remember our first dinner with them? Wyatt asked, wrapping his arms around my waist. How could I forget? Your mother took one look at my second-hand dress and decided I was after your trust fund. I turned to face him. That prenup was quite the wedding gift. I'm still sorry about that. Don't be. It was the best motivation I've ever received. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Christian. You ready for tonight, boss lady? I smiled, typing back, as ready as I'll ever be. What's Christian saying? Wyatt asked, trying to peek at my screen. I locked my phone quickly. Just checking in. You know how he worries. The drive to his parents' house was tense. Each mile brought back memories. Kylie's snide comments about my background, Luke's condescending financial advice, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. They're going to love what you've done with the charity foundation, Wyatt said, squeezing my hand as we pulled up to the gates. If only he knew. Elisa's car was already parked in the circular driveway. She stood by the entrance, pacing and biting her nails, a habit from childhood that only emerged when something was seriously wrong. Thank God you're here, she said, hurrying toward us. Mom's on a warpath. What's going on? Wyatt asked. I don't know exactly, but Dad's been locked in his study all day, and Mum keeps making these weird calls. We followed her inside. The mansion hadn't changed, still the same oppressive grandeur, still the same portrait of Kylie in her debutante dress dominating the foyer. There you are. Kylie's voice cut through the air like a knife. She stood at the top of the stairs, perfectly coiffed as always. We've been waiting. Luke appeared behind her, his usual confident stance replaced by something more rigid, almost fearful. What's this about, Mum? Wyatt asked as we climbed the stairs. Oh, you'll see. She turned her ice blue eyes on me. We have quite a lot to discuss with your wife. The way she said wife, like it was something dirty, made my blood boil. But I kept my face neutral, years of practice serving me well. We filed into Luke's study. The room smelled of expensive cigars and aged leather, but something was different. The prized art pieces that usually lined the walls were missing. Sit, Kylie commanded, pointing to the chairs arranged before Luke's desk. I took my seat, noting how Elisa chose to stand by the window instead of joining her mother's side. Interesting. We know what you've been doing, Kylie said, placing a folder on the desk between us. Did you really think you could get away with it? Get away with what exactly? I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The transfers, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. Luke spoke for the first time, his voice heavy. We've tracked it all. Wyatt stood up. What are you talking about? Your wife, Kylie spat, has been systematically stealing from this family for years, and we have proof. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The sound seemed to startle everyone in the room. Something funny about fraud, Aliyah? Luke demanded. I reached for the folder, flipping it open with steady hands. Inside were transaction records, business filings, and investment reports. They had indeed been tracking something, just not what they thought. You know, I said, closing the folder, for people so concerned about their money, you really should have paid more attention to who's been buying up your company's debt. The color drained from Luke's face. What is she talking about? Wyatt asked, looking between his parents and me. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I think it's time we had a different kind of family meeting, one where we discuss how I'm going to save your empire from collapse. The silence that followed was deafening, and for the first time in 10 years, I saw real fear in Kylie's eyes. What do you mean, save our empire? Kylie's perfectly manicured nails dug into the leather of Luke's desk chair. We don't need saving, especially not from you. The missing artwork suggests otherwise, I replied, gesturing to the bare walls. Selling off assets already? Luke slammed his hand on the desk. How dare you? Dad, Elisa interrupted, stepping forward. Is it true? Are we in trouble? The silence that followed was answer enough. Wyatt moved closer to me, his expression a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Aaliyah, what's going on? He asked quietly. I pulled out my phone and dialed Christian. Send them in, I said, then ended the call. Send who in? Kylie demanded. My team of financial advisors. They're waiting outside with detailed reports of your company's current position. I met Luke's gaze, including the 3 failed development projects you've been hiding from your board. Luke collapsed into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his 60 years. How did you... No, I finished for him. I've been watching your company for years. The Caribbean resort project that went belly up. The failed tech startup investments. The mounting debt you've been shuffling between subsidiaries. Wyatt's face hardened. Dad, is this true? Before Luke could answer, the study door opened. 3 people in suits entered, carrying tablets and folders. They silently distributed documents to everyone in the room. Page 1 shows your current debt position, I explained, my voice steady. Page 2 shows who holds that debt. Pay particular attention to the highlighted sections. The room fell silent as they read. I watched Kylie's face transform from contempt to horror as she processed the information. This is impossible, she whispered. Mom? Elisa's voice cracked as she looked up from her papers. We're nearly bankrupt? Not nearly, I corrected. You would be, if not for the anonymous investor who's been buying up your debt for the past 3 years. Wyatt's head snapped up. You? I nodded. Remember that prenup you made me sign? The one that specified I couldn't touch any family assets or claim any part of the family business? I allowed myself a small smile. Well, I followed those terms to the letter. I built something of my own instead. The charity foundation, Wyatt said slowly. It wasn't just a charity, was it? The foundation was real enough, but it was just one branch of what I created. I turned to my team. Show them the Artemis Group portfolio. More documents were distributed. I watched as understanding dawned on their faces. 15 billion in assets, I stated clearly. Built from scratch over 10 years. No family money, no connections, just hard work and determination. The same determination you tried to break with your accusations and prenup. Impossible, Kylie repeated, but her voice was weaker now. The woman you dismissed as a gold digger now owns enough of your debt to force a takeover, I continued, but that's not what I want. Luke leaned forward. What do you want? Originally, revenge, to prove you wrong, to show you exactly who you underestimated. I sat down next to Wyatt, taking his hand. But now I want to help. Why would you help us? Kylie demanded, though her usual venom was missing. Because despite everything, I love your son, and because sometimes the best revenge is showing mercy when you could choose destruction. Elisa moved to stand beside me. I've seen the numbers, Mom. We need her help. This is a trick, Kylie insisted, but even she didn't seem to believe it anymore. No tricks, I said firmly. Just business. I have a proposal that will save your company, protect the jobs of thousands of employees, and restore the legacy you're so proud of. But it comes with conditions. What conditions? Luke asked. I stood up, straightening my blazer. First, you'll stop treating me like an outsider trying to steal your fortune. The irony of that should be clear by now. Wyatt squeezed my hand, and I drew strength from his touch. Second, we'll restructure the company leadership. No more hiding failures or cooking books. Everything transparent, everything above board. And third? Luke prompted. Third, I said, looking directly at Kylie. You'll apologize. Not just to me, but to every person you've looked down on, every employee you've belittled, every family member you've manipulated. It's time for things to change. The room fell silent again, broken only by the sound of Kylie's shuddering breath. Take the night to think about it, I said, gathering my things. My team will leave the documents with you. Call me when you're ready to discuss terms. As Wyatt and I turned to leave, Elisa caught my arm. How long have you been planning this? I smiled. Since the day they made me sign that prenup. The drive home was silent until Wyatt pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. 10 years, he said quietly. You built an empire right under my nose for 10 years. I wanted to tell you so many times, I replied, turning to face him. But I needed to do this on my own. Show me, he said suddenly. Show me everything. 20 minutes later, we sat in my home office, a room Wyatt had always assumed was just for my charity work. I logged into my computer and pulled up the Artemis Group's main database. It started small, I explained, clicking through various projects. Remember that tiny consulting firm I started? The one in the spare bedroom of our first apartment? That's the one. Every client taught me something new. Every contract built my network. I pulled up an old photo of me and Christian working late in that cramped bedroom. Christian believed in me when no one else did. Except me, Wyatt interjected. I always believed in you. You did, I acknowledged, but you also let your family convince you I needed to be controlled. He flinched. The prenup, I agreed. Your mother's crowning achievement in protecting the family fortune from the gold-digging nobody. I clicked through more slides, showing the progression of my business. Each success led to bigger opportunities. I reinvested everything. Lived well below our means. Remember how your mother mocked my off-the-rack clothes? While you were secretly building a billion-dollar company. Wyatt shook his head in amazement. A knock at the door interrupted us. Elisa stood there, looking uncertain. I followed you, she admitted. I need to understand. I gestured for her to join us. Perfect timing. I was just showing Wyatt how it all started. Including how our family treated you, she asked quietly. I pulled up another file. Actually, you might be interested in this. Remember 3 years ago when you wanted to start your own fashion line? Elisa's eyes widened. The mysterious investor who backed out at the last minute. Was me, I confirmed. Through a shell company. Your parents had already sabotaged your plans by threatening other potential investors. I couldn't let them know I was involved. But why pull out? Because I saw how they were manipulating you, using the promise of funding to keep you under their control. I met her eyes. You needed to break free on your own terms. Like you did, she whispered. Look at this, Wyatt said, pointing to the screen. The Thompson Development Project, that was you. I nodded. Your father's biggest competitor. When they started struggling, I stepped in, saved 3,000 jobs and turned the company around. While Dad's project failed, Elisa added. Because he refused to listen to his advisors, I explained. His pride cost the company millions. My phone buzzed. A text from Christian. Board members are getting nervous. Luke's been making calls. Your father's trying to rally support, I told them, showing them the message. But he doesn't realize I've spent years building relationships with every major player in his company. What happens now? Wyatt asked. I pulled up one final document. This is my proposal for restructuring the company. New management, new direction, complete transparency. Mom will never accept it, Elisa said. She doesn't have a choice. The company's drowning in debt, and I own most of it. You could destroy them, Wyatt realized. I could, I agreed. One phone call and 10 generations of your family's legacy crumbles. But you won't, Elisa said with certainty. No, I won't, because this was never about destruction. It was about proving my worth. I closed my laptop. And about showing that success doesn't have to come at the cost of others' dignity. Wyatt took my hand. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from them. I didn't need protection, I replied. I needed respect, and now I've earned it. What about the charity foundation? Elisa asked. Was that all just a cover? I smiled, pulling up photos of the education centers we'd built, the scholarships we'd funded. The foundation is very real, because unlike your parents, I believe wealth comes with responsibility. My phone buzzed again. Luke's name appeared on the screen. Ready to face them again? Wyatt asked. I stood up, straightening my shoulders. I've been ready for 10 years. I'm coming with you, Elisa declared. It's time someone stood up to them. As we prepared to leave, I caught my reflection in the window. The scared young bride was gone forever, replaced by someone who had turned rejection into resolve, and humiliation into triumph. Let's go show them what real business acumen looks like, I said, leading the way out. The Bryant mansion looked different in the harsh morning light, less intimidating, more like what it really was. A facade, hiding a crumbling foundation. Luke opened the door before we could ring the bell, his face haggard from a sleepless night. The board's revolting, he said without preamble. They're calling for an emergency meeting. I know, I replied, walking past him. I called it. Kylie stood in the study, surrounded by stacks of financial documents. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her red-rimmed eyes. You've been busy, I observed, noting the empty coffee cups littering the desk. How did we miss this? She demanded. How did we not see you building this empire? Because you were too busy watching me fail, I answered. Every criticism, every snide remark about my clothes, my background, my ambitions. You were so focused on tearing me down that you never noticed me rising. Elisa stepped forward. I found something else, Mom. She placed a folder on the desk. The resort project in Barbados, the one that supposedly failed. It didn't fail at all. Luke's face went pale. Elisa, don't. The project was profitable, she continued, but someone siphoned off the funds, someone with executive access to the accounts. Wyatt grabbed the folder. Dad, what did you do? What I had to do, Luke exploded. The lifestyle your mother demanded, the image we had to maintain, it all costs money. Money we didn't have, Kylie whispered, sinking into a chair. My phone buzzed, a message from Christian. Board members arriving at HQ, showtime. We need to go, I announced. The board meeting starts in an hour. To witness our humiliation, Kylie asked bitterly. To save your company, I corrected, unless you'd rather explain to your society friends why you're selling this house. The drive to headquarters was tense. I rode with Wyatt and Elisa, while Luke and Kylie followed in their car. As we pulled into the executive parking garage, I spotted familiar faces gathering. Board members I'd cultivated relationships with over the years, never revealing my true identity. Mrs. Harrison, called out George, the head of the board. I didn't expect to see you here. Actually, I said, extending my hand, it's Mrs. Bryant, but you know me better as the CEO of Artemis Group. His jaw dropped. Around us, other board members whispered and pointed. Shall we begin? I gestured toward the elevator. The boardroom was packed. Luke and Kylie slipped in last, taking seats at the far end of the table. I stood at the head, my presentation ready. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, you're here because this company is in crisis. But what you don't know is that it's been in crisis for years. Slides appeared behind me, showing the true state of the company's finances. Gasps filled the room as the numbers revealed themselves. However, I continued, there's a solution. A merger with Artemis Group would not only save this company, but transform it into something stronger. And who controls Artemis Group? Demanded one board member. I do, I stated clearly. The woman some of you may remember as the gold-digging bride who needed a prenup. The room erupted in murmurs. I caught Kylie shrinking in her seat. My proposal is simple, I continued over the noise. A complete restructuring, new management, transparent operations, and a focus on sustainable growth rather than maintaining appearances. And the current leadership? George asked, glancing at Luke. We'll step down, I answered. Immediately. Luke stood up abruptly. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Dad, Elisa commanded. You lost the right to protest when you embezzled from your own company. More gasps. Luke collapsed back into his chair. I clicked to the next slide. I've prepared a detailed transition plan. Each of you has a copy in front of you. Take an hour to review it. When we reconvene, we'll vote. As the board members filed out for the break, Kylie approached me. Her hands were shaking. You could have destroyed us, she said quietly. Yes. Why didn't you? I looked at Wyatt, who stood proudly by my side. Because revenge wasn't worth destroying something that could be saved. But make no mistake, the old way of doing things ends today. All those years, she murmured, I thought I was protecting my family from you, but you were actually protecting it from us. The vote will pass, I told her. The board trusts me more than they trust Luke. The only question is whether you'll accept the changes with grace or force me to do this the hard way. She straightened her shoulders, a ghost of her old pride showing through. And if we accept, then we build something better, together. I held out my hand. Your choice. After a long moment, she took it. The vote was unanimous. As board members filed out of the room, Christian slipped in through the side door, tablet in hand. You won't believe what I just found, he said, his face grim. There's more to the story. More than Dad's embezzlement? Elisa asked. Christian placed his tablet on the table, pulling up a series of documents. These were buried deep in the company servers. Someone tried to delete them, but... He smiled. Well, let's just say I'm very good at my job. I leaned forward, scanning the files. My breath caught. Luke, care to explain why there's a second will? Luke's head snapped up. What? Your father's will, I clarified. The one that supposedly left everything to you? Turns out there was another version. One that divided the company equally between you and your sister Margaret. Kylie's face went white. Margaret died 20 years ago. In a car accident, Elisa added, before I was born. Did she? Christian asked, sliding another document across the table. Because according to these bank records, someone's been making regular payments to an account in Toronto under her name. Payments that started right after her death and continued until 3 months ago. The room fell silent. Luke stared at the documents, his hands trembling. What did you do? Kylie whispered. I had no choice, Luke said hoarsely. She was going to ruin everything. She wanted to sell, to break up the company. Our father's legacy. So you forced her out, I finished. Made her disappear, take the money and stay quiet, or else. Wyatt slammed his hand on the table. My God, Dad. Your own sister? She's alive, Elisa asked, tears in her eyes. We have an aunt we never knew about. I pulled out my phone, dialing a number. Margaret? It's Aliyah. Yes, I found them. It's time. The door opened, and a woman walked in. She had Luke's eyes and Elisa's smile, though her hair had gone silver. Luke stumbled backward as if he'd seen a ghost. Hello, little brother, Margaret said quietly. Kylie grabbed the edge of the table for support. All these years. I'm sorry, Kylie, Margaret said. I wanted to reach out so many times, but the agreement Luke made me sign, which is now void, I interjected, along with any claim Luke had to sole ownership of the company. You knew? Luke demanded, turning to me. How long have you known? 3 months, I replied. When the payment stopped, Margaret reached out to Artemis Group for help. Imagine her surprise when she learned who I was. This whole time, Wyatt said, while you were buying up company debt, I was also helping your aunt prepare to reclaim her rightful place, I finished. The board has already approved her appointment as co-chair. Luke lunged forward. You can't... Sit down, Margaret commanded, and surprisingly, he did. You took 20 years of my life, Luke. 20 years away from my family, my home, my legacy. The only reason I'm not pressing charges is because of her. She nodded toward me. Why? Kylie asked me, her voice barely a whisper. Because sometimes healing is better than vengeance, I answered. And because this company needs both strength and compassion to survive. Elisa moved to stand beside her aunt, studying her face. You have Mom's old pictures. The ones that went missing. Margaret smiled, touching her niece's cheek. I took them when I left, to remember the family I lost. The family you can have again, I said firmly. If everyone is willing to move forward. Luke slumped in his chair, defeated. What happens now? Now, Margaret said, we rebuild. Together. But first, she turned to Kylie. I believe you owe your daughter-in-law an apology, a real one. Kylie stood slowly, her perfect posture finally cracking. Aaliyah, Take your time, I said. We have plenty of it now. I was wrong, she managed. About everything. You weren't trying to steal from this family. You were trying to save it. From us. From what we'd become. Wyatt took my hand, squeezing it gently. The new board meets tomorrow, I announced. Margaret and I will lead the transition team. Luke, you'll provide a full accounting of all diverted funds. Kylie, you'll help Elisa launch her fashion line, properly this time. And me? Wyatt asked. I smiled. You, my love, get to watch your wife and aunt transform your family's company into something worthy of its name. Margaret picked up the original will, running her fingers over her father's signature. He would have liked you, Aaliyah. You have his spirit. Speaking of spirit, Elisa said, wait until the society papers get hold of this story. They won't, I replied. Some things are better kept in the family. Now, shall we get to work? 3 weeks into the transition, I found Luke waiting in my office before dawn. The security logs showed he'd arrived at 4 a.m. Burning the midnight oil, I asked, setting down my coffee. We need to talk, he said, sliding a folder across my desk. Privately. I opened the folder and immediately recognized the pattern. More hidden accounts, more diverted funds, but these were different. These led to offshore holdings I hadn't discovered. How much, I asked. Enough to sink everything, he replied. Even your merger won't save us if this comes out. I studied his face, noting the calculated desperation in his eyes. What do you want, Luke? A deal, off the books. He leaned forward. I'll make these accounts disappear permanently. In exchange, I keep my position and full voting rights. Blackmailing your way back to power? I closed the folder. Not very original. I'm trying to protect this family. No, I said, standing up. You're trying to protect yourself. Again. The door opened, and Margaret walked in, followed by Wyatt and Elisa. Right on time, I said, handing Margaret the folder. Luke's face went pale. You knew they were coming. I knew you'd try something like this, I replied. The question was when, not if. We've been tracking your movements for days, Wyatt said, his voice hard. Every call, every meeting, every desperate attempt to hide what's left of your schemes. Elisa stepped forward. Did you really think you could outmaneuver her, after everything we've seen? You don't understand, Luke protested. These accounts, if they become public... They already are, Margaret interrupted, turning on the television mounted on the wall. The morning news was running a special report. Breaking, major corporate corruption exposed. Anonymous whistleblower reveals decades of financial fraud. You didn't, Luke whispered. I didn't, I confirmed. You did. Every desperate move you made in the past 3 weeks. We were waiting, watching, documenting. The SEC has everything, Margaret added. Every account, every transaction, every attempt to cover your tracks. Luke lunged for the door, but Wyatt blocked his path. Sit down, Dad. It's over. The reporters will be here in an hour, I said, checking my watch. The board in 2. By noon, the markets will open, and everyone will know. You'll destroy the company, Luke said. Everything I built. Everything you stole, Elisa corrected. From Aunt Margaret, from the shareholders, from all of us. But the company won't be destroyed, I assured him, because while you were plotting this sad little coup, we were preparing. I pulled up the presentation on my laptop. Every major shareholder has been briefed. Every partner has been assured. The merger is proceeding with full transparency, including the exposure of past misdeeds. The stock will tank, he protested. Temporarily, Margaret agreed. And then it will recover, stronger than ever, because for the first time in decades, this company will be run with integrity. A knock at the door. Kylie entered, her face set in grim determination. "The lawyers are here," she announced, "and I've signed the papers." Luke's head snapped up. "What papers?" "Divorce papers," Kylie said quietly. "I won't be dragged down with you, Luke. Not anymore." "Mom," Wyatt breathed. "I've spent 30 years turning a blind eye," Kylie continued, "telling myself it was for the family, for our legacy. But the real legacy is standing right here." She gestured to me. "The woman we tried to keep out is the one who saved us all. Security is waiting downstairs," I said to Luke. "They'll escort you out quietly if you go now. Make a scene, and they'll do it in front of the arriving press." Luke stood slowly, his empire crumbling before his eyes. "You think you've won?" "This was never about winning," I replied. "It was about doing what's right, something you forgot a long time ago." "I'll fight this," he threatened. "No," Margaret said, "you won't. Because if you do, the next documents I release will be about Sarah." Luke went completely still. "You know about Sarah? Your other secret?" Margaret's voice was ice. "Your other family? Yes, we know. So take the quiet exit, Luke, while you still can." As security led him away, I turned to the others. "Ready to face the press?" Wyatt took my hand. "Together." "The way it always should have been," Elisa added. Kylie straightened her shoulders, years of pretense falling away. "Show us how it's done, Aaliyah. Show us how to build something real." I looked at my family. Not the one I married into, but the one we were becoming. "Let's go make history." The elevator dinged, and we could hear the first reporters arriving in the lobby below. It was time to step into the light. The press conference was a circus. Camera flashes exploded as we took our seats at the long table, microphones arranged before us like soldiers standing at attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "thank you for coming. Today marks a new chapter in our company's history." A reporter's hand shot up immediately. "Is it true Luke has been arrested?" "My father," Wyatt answered, his voice steady, "is cooperating with authorities. We'll let the justice system handle that aspect." "Ms. Margaret," another reporter called out, "how does it feel to return after 20 years? Margaret smiled, the cameras catching her grace under pressure. "Like coming home, but more importantly, like being part of something honest and new." "Mrs. Bryant," several voices called out at once. I nodded to a reporter in the front row. "Your rise from supposed gold digger to corporate savior is remarkable. Was this revenge?" "No," I said firmly. "This was restoration, of value, of integrity, and of family." Kylie stepped forward to the microphone, surprising us all. "If I may," she said, her voice clear and strong, "I owe everyone in this room an apology, but especially my daughter-in-law." The room fell silent. 10 years ago, I forced this brilliant woman to sign a prenuptial agreement because I thought she was beneath us. Today, she sits here having saved not just our company, but our family's soul. Cameras clicked frantically as Kylie turned to face me directly. "Aaliyah, I was wrong. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. And I'm not just apologizing to you, but to every person I've ever looked down on, every employee I've belittled, every life I've touched with my arrogance." Elisa reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. A business reporter stood up. "The stock has dropped 30% since the announcement. How do you plan to stabilize the company?" I gestured to Christiane, who distributed packets to the press. "Inside, you'll find our complete restructuring plan. The merger between Artemis Group and the existing company creates one of the strongest entities in the market. More importantly, it's built on a foundation of transparency." "And the leadership structure," someone else called out. "Margaret and I will co-chair the board," I announced. "Elisa will head our new fashion division. Wyatt will lead international operations. And Kylie..." "We'll be stepping back," Kylie finished. "It's time for new blood, new ideas, and new values." The questions continued for an hour. We answered each one directly, honestly, holding nothing back. As the conference wound down, A young reporter raised her hand. Mrs. Bryant, what would you say to other women facing discrimination and prejudice in corporate America? I leaned into the microphone. Build your own table. They may not let you sit at theirs, but nothing stops you from creating something better. And when you succeed, remember to leave room for others to join you. After the press cleared out, we gathered in the boardroom. The stock had stabilized, ending only 15% down, better than expected. They're calling you the silent queen on social media, Elisa said, showing me her phone. The woman who built an empire in secret while they underestimated her. I prefer just Aliyah, I replied, but I was smiling. Margaret's phone buzzed. The SEC just released their initial findings. Luke's looking at serious time. Sarah's reached out, Kylie said quietly. His other wife, she wants to meet. Wyatt ran his hands through his hair. I still can't believe he had another family. People will surprise you, I said. Sometimes with their capacity for deception, sometimes with their capacity for growth. I looked meaningfully at Kylie. Speaking of growth, Elisa interjected, wait until you see the designs for the new fashion line. Aunt Margaret's been helping me. First, I said, standing up, we need to address the employees. They deserve to hear the truth from us directly. We made our way to the company auditorium, where hundreds of nervous employees waited. As we walked onto the stage, I saw fear in their eyes. Fear of losing jobs, of change, of an uncertain future. Your jobs are safe, I began, and a collective breath of relief filled the room. In fact, we're expanding, but more importantly, you'll now be working for a company you can be proud of. No more hiding, Margaret added. No more fear. No more hierarchy based on anything but merit, Kylie continued. As we laid out our plans, I watched hope replace fear in their eyes. This was the real victory, not the revenge I'd once dreamed of, but the chance to build something meaningful from the ashes of deception. Wyatt took my hand as we finished speaking. Ready for what comes next? I looked at our strange, broken, healing family on stage. More than ready. This is just the beginning. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries through the open windows of my office. On my desk sat the morning's newspaper, its headline still surreal. Corporate Phoenix rises, company value doubles under new leadership. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Christian entered, grinning. The last of Luke's hidden accounts has been cleaned up. It's officially over. Nothing's ever really over, I replied, but I was smiling too. How's the new security system? Impenetrable. No one will be able to hide financial misconduct again. He paused. Luke's sentencing is tomorrow. I know. Wyatt's going. Are you? Before I could answer, Elisa burst in, her arms full of design portfolios. The Paris Fashion Week invitations just arrived, and you'll never believe who's coming with us. Try me, I said, already knowing. Mom! Elisa's eyes sparkled. She's been helping with the designs. Actually helping, not just criticizing. And Aunt Margaret's handling the business negotiations. The door opened again, and Kylie herself walked in, looking different than I'd ever seen her. Gone were the designer suits and perfect coif. Instead, she wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. The models are ready for the final fitting, she announced, and I've been thinking about adding a line for working women. Practical, but elegant. Like you've become, I suggested. She smiled, a real smile, not the society mask she used to wear. I'm learning. Finally. Margaret joined us, tablet in hand. The board meeting's about to start, ready to show them the quarterly results. Actually, I said, I thought you should present them. You've earned it. Her eyes widened. Aliyah, the company was always meant to be yours too, I reminded her. Time to take your place fully. Wyatt appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here you all need to meet. He stepped aside, revealing a woman in her early 30s who shared Luke's features. Sarah, his daughter from his other family. I hope I'm not intruding, she said nervously. Kylie moved first, surprising us all by embracing her. Your family, you belong here. The board's waiting, Christian reminded us gently. Let them wait, I said. This is more important. We gathered around my office's seating area, this strange patchwork family brought together by secrets and lies, but healing through truth. I never thought I'd be grateful for that prenup, I admitted, but it led to all of this. To think, Elisa mused, if Mum and Dad hadn't been so awful to you, we'd all still be living lies, Kylie finished. Sometimes the worst things we do lead to the best outcomes. My phone buzzed. A message from the detention center where Luke was being held. He was asking to see me before tomorrow's sentencing. Go, Wyatt said, reading my expression. End this chapter properly. The detention center was cold and grey. Luke sat at the visitors' table, orange jumpsuit a far cry from his custom suits. You won, he said as I sat down. No one won, Luke, but some good came from it. Sarah, you found her? She found us. She's strong, brilliant, and wants to know her siblings. He slumped. I destroyed everything. No, I corrected. You tried to control everything, and it broke. But we rebuilt something better from the pieces. Why are you here? To tell you that your family is okay. Different, but okay. Kylie is designing clothes with Elisa. Margaret is thriving. Wyatt is the leader he was always meant to be. And Sarah, she's healing too. And you, still enjoying your revenge? This stopped being about revenge a long time ago. It's about legacy now. The right kind. I stood to leave, then paused. The company will support your other family too. It's the right thing to do. Back at the office, I found everyone gathered in the boardroom. The quarterly results were displayed on the screen. Record profits, soaring stock prices, unprecedented growth. To new beginnings, Margaret proposed, raising her coffee cup. To family, Kylie added, in all its forms. To truth, Elisa chimed in. To love, Wyatt said, taking my hand. I looked around at these people who had become so much more than in-laws. To all of it, I said. The good, the bad, the ugly truth, and the beautiful aftermath. Sarah raised her cup too, finally belonging. To second chances. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, we had built something rare and precious. A family forged not by blood or marriage contracts, but by choice and change and challenge overcome. Ready for the board? Christian asked. I squeezed Wyatt's hand and smiled. Ready for anything.
The morning sun streamed through my bedroom window as I traced my fingers over the wedding dress hanging on my closet door. In less than 24 hours, I'd be walking down the aisle to marry the love of my life. Everything was perfect, or at least that's what I desperately wanted to believe. I'm Autumn, and this should have been the happiest morning of my life. Instead, my stomach was in knots as I prepared to face another breakfast with my future mother-in-law. Girl, you look like you're heading to a funeral, not your wedding rehearsal, Tessa said, barging into my room with 2 cups of coffee. My best friend had practically moved in this week to help with the preparations. Here, caffeine fixes everything. Thanks, I said, accepting the cup. I just can't shake this feeling that Mara's planning something. Your mother-in-law from hell? Tessa rolled her eyes. When isn't she planning something? The doorbell rang, and my heart skipped. Travis was early for breakfast. I hurried downstairs, nearly colliding with him in the hallway. His smile still made my knees weak, even after 3 years together. There's my beautiful bride, he said, pulling me into a kiss. Travis, darling. Mara's voice cut through our moment like a knife. She swept in behind him, uninvited as usual. Oh, Autumn, you're not dressed yet? And your hair? I forced a smile, very aware of my messy bun and yoga pants. Good morning, Mara. We weren't expecting you for another hour. Well, I thought I'd come early to help. There's so much to do, and we want everything to be... She paused, her eyes scanning our modest living room. Adequate. Travis squeezed my hand. Mom, please, we talked about this. About what? She blinked innocently. I'm only trying to help. After all, it's not every day my only son marries a... Another pointed pause. Well, let's have breakfast, shall we? Tessa appeared with a tray of freshly baked croissants. These just came out of the oven. Autumn made them herself. How quaint, Mara said, delicately picking one up. In our family, we usually have our staff handle the cooking. Well, in my family, we believe in doing things ourselves, I replied, my voice steady. Travis loves my baking, don't you, honey? Best croissants I've ever had, he said, grabbing one and taking a big bite. Mara's perfectly lined lips twitched. Yes, well, speaking of the wedding, I took the liberty of making some last-minute changes to the seating arrangement. What changes? I asked, my coffee cup freezing halfway to my mouth. Oh, just minor adjustments. I moved your cousin Rachel to the back. We can't have someone with blue hair in the primary wedding photos, can we? And your friend Jack, the one with the... She wrinkled her nose. Tattoos. He's now at the overflow table. Mom, Travis interjected, you can't just change things without asking? Darling, I'm only thinking of the family photos. They'll be in our albums forever. I set my cup down carefully. Mara, Rachel is my only remaining family since my parents passed. She's sitting at the main table, and that's final. The room went silent. Mara's eyes narrowed slightly, but her plastic smile remained fixed. Of course, dear. It was merely a suggestion. Though I must say, if you're going to take that tone with me, perhaps we should discuss your choice of wedding dress again. That off-the-rack number is hardly befitting a Garcia bride. The dress is perfect, Tessa cut in, and it's already altered. We'll see, Mara murmured, so quietly I almost missed it. Travis checked his watch. Mom, we should head to the venue. The rehearsal starts in an hour. He kissed my cheek. See you there, babe. As they left, Tessa grabbed my arm. Did you hear what she said about the dress? Autumn, I don't trust her. Neither do I admitted, watching through the window as Travis helped his mother into her Mercedes. But what can she possibly do? The dress is locked safely in my closet, and tomorrow I'm marrying the man I love. Just be careful, Tessa warned. That woman has more schemes than a soap opera villain. I nodded, trying to ignore the growing unease in my stomach. Tomorrow was my wedding day, and nothing, not even Mara Garcia, was going to ruin it. At least that's what I thought at the time. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, I'd be facing the biggest crisis of my life, or that karma was about to teach my future mother-in-law an unforgettable lesson. No, 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 my scream echoed through the bridal suite as I stared at the garment bag in horror. Where my beautiful wedding dress should have been hung, what looked like a thrift store reject, yellowed, stained, and at least 3 decades old. What's wrong? Tessa burst through the door, still in her robe. The other bridesmaids crowded behind her. My hands shook as I unzipped the bag completely. My dress? It's gone. This thing is in its place. That's impossible, Tessa said, rushing to my side. I saw you hang it up last night after the rehearsal dinner. You double-checked everything. A soft knock at the door made us all jump. Just checking if the bride is ready to start getting dressed. Mara's sickeningly sweet voice called out. Don't let her in, I whispered to Tessa, but it was too late. Mara glided into the room, immaculate in her designer outfit. Oh my, she gasped, pressing a manicured hand to her chest. What happened to your dress, dear? The false concern in her voice made my blood boil. You know exactly what happened. Are you suggesting I had something to do with this? Mara's eyes widened in mock offense. Really, Autumn, your paranoia is showing. Perhaps this is a sign that you're not ready to join our family. Stop it, I snapped, stepping closer to her. Where is my dress? How should I know? Though, I must say, this older dress might be more appropriate for someone of your background. We can't all afford couture, can we? Tessa grabbed my arm before I could respond. I'm calling the police. Over a missing dress? Mara laughed. Don't be dramatic. The ceremony starts in 3 hours. Maybe you should focus on finding something else to wear instead of throwing around baseless accusations. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Oh, and Autumn, do try to keep this little incident quiet. We wouldn't want to upset Travis on his big day, would we? The door clicked shut behind her, and I collapsed into a chair, fighting back tears. That witch, Tessa fumed, pacing the room. She must have gotten a copy of the key card somehow. I bet she has the dress hidden somewhere. We don't have time to search the whole venue, I said, my voice hollow. And she's right. We can't tell Travis. He's already stressed about his father not being here. Then we fight back, Tessa declared, pulling out her phone. Remember that boutique owner I told you about? Jasmine? She owes me a favor, and she's known for working miracles. A boutique owner can't help us now, I said, staring at the ruined dress. The ceremony's in 3 hours. Trust me, Tessa insisted, already dialing. Jasmine isn't just any boutique owner. She's— Another knock interrupted us. The wedding planner, Yvette, poked her head in. Everything okay? I just saw Mara looking rather pleased with herself. No, everything is not okay, Tessa exploded, explaining the situation. Yvette's face darkened. I've worked hundreds of weddings, but I've never seen a mother-in-law stoop this low. Want me to accidentally spill red wine on her dress? Despite everything, I laughed. No, we need to be smarter than that. An idea began forming in my mind. Tessa, make that call. Yvette, I need you to keep Mara busy. Give her some crisis to manage, something about the catering maybe? On it, Yvette said with a wink. I can stage quite a convincing meltdown about the wrong appetizers being delivered. As they sprang into action, I stood up and faced the mirror. My reflection showed a woman on the edge of either a breakdown or a breakthrough. Mara wanted to humiliate me, to prove I didn't belong in her perfect world, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. Jasmine's on her way, Tessa announced, ending her call. She says to tell you she's bringing reinforcements. I nodded, a calm determination replacing my panic. Good, because we're not just going to fix this. We're going to make sure Mara never forgets this day. What are you planning? Tessa asked, a slow smile spreading across her face. Let's just say, I replied, picking up the ruined dress, Karma's about to make a very fashionable entrance. The next 3 hours would either make or break my wedding day. But as I heard Yvette's voice down the hall, already launching into her performance about mixed-up food orders, I felt a surge of hope. Mara thought she had won, but she was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the wrong bride. The bridal suite door burst open exactly 20 minutes later, revealing a striking woman in her 40s wheeling a large garment bag. Behind her, a tall man struggled with what looked like a mobile workshop of sewing supplies. So, we have a mother-in-law situation? Jasmine asked, sweeping into the room like a force of nature. Her eyes fell on the ruined dress and narrowed. Oh, this is personal. Jasmine, thank you for coming. Tessa rushed forward. This is Autumn. Darling, save the thanks. When Tessa told me what happened, I canceled 3 appointments. No one ruins a bride's day on my watch. She turned to her assistant. Asher, set up over there. We have 2 hours and 40 minutes. I watched in amazement as Asher transformed a corner of the suite into a mini atelier, complete with a portable sewing machine and what seemed like endless supplies. Now, Jasmine said, unzipping her garment bag, let's see what we have to work with. She pulled out something that made my jaw drop, a stunning white gown that seemed to shimmer in the light. That's a Jasmine Clark original, I gasped, finally recognizing her. You're the Jasmine Clark? The one and only, she winked, And this is just the beginning. Asher, the lace panels. But these dresses cost a fortune, I protested. I can't possibly— Stop right there. Jasmine held up a hand. Your mother worked for me for 15 years. Sarah was more than an employee. She was family. When Tessa mentioned your name, I knew exactly who you were. Tears welled in my eyes at the mention of my mother. You knew her? She was my head seamstress until the accident, and she would be damned if she let some stuck-up society woman ruin her daughter's wedding day. Jasmine's eyes softened. Now, let's make some magic. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Jasmine and Asher worked with incredible precision, transforming the dress while Tessa ran interference, keeping curious bridesmaids at bay. Through the door, we could hear Yvette still orchestrating her catering crisis, keeping Mara thoroughly distracted. Almost there, Jasmine muttered, making minute adjustments. Asher, the pearl detailing. A knock at the door made us all freeze. Autumn, it's Travis. Mom said something about problems with your dress? My heart stopped. Just a minor issue, honey. Everything's fine. Are you sure? I can help. No, we all shouted in unison. It's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding, Tessa called out, shooting me a panicked look. Okay, Travis sounded uncertain. But if you need anything— She's in good hands, Jasmine called out, putting the final touches on the dress. Your bride will be ready on time, Mr. Garcia. After his footsteps faded, I turned to the mirror and gasped. The dress was beyond anything I could have imagined. The original gown had been transformed with delicate lace overlays and hand-sewn pearl details that caught the light with every movement. There's just one thing missing, Jasmine said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a small, vintage-looking hair clip. Your mother wore this at her wedding. She left it with me for safekeeping, saying someday it would be yours. My hands trembled as I took the clip. I thought all her things were lost in the move after— She knew what she was doing, Jasmine smiled. Now, let's get you into this dress. We have a mother-in-law to educate about karma. As Tessa and Jasmine helped me into the gown, Asher peeked out the door. Heads up, the dragon lady is heading this way, and she looks smug. Perfect timing, Jasmine said, making a final adjustment. Autumn, are you ready? I stood tall, feeling the smooth fabric settle around me. More than ready. Remember, Jasmine whispered, the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about rising above while looking absolutely fabulous. The door handle turned, and I could practically feel Mara's anticipation of my humiliation on the other side. But as I caught my reflection one last time, I knew she was in for a surprise. The woman in the mirror wasn't a victim. She was a vision, and she was about to teach her future mother-in-law an unforgettable lesson about messing with the wrong bride. Places, everyone, Jasmine commanded softly. It's showtime. Mara's face as she entered the room was a study in shock. Her perfectly painted mouth fell open, and for once, she seemed completely lost for words. Oh, Mara, I exclaimed with fake brightness. I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? She stammered, her eyes fixed on my transformed dress. Yes, if you hadn't pointed out the issues with my original dress, I never would have had the opportunity to wear this. I turned slowly, letting the fabric catch the light. It's a Jasmine Clark original. You do know Jasmine Clark, don't you? Jasmine stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. Mara, what a pleasure. I don't believe we've met, though I've heard so much about you. The color drained from Mara's face. Jasmine Clark. But how? Why are you? Let's just say I have a personal interest in ensuring Autumn has the perfect wedding day, Jasmine replied smoothly. Though I am curious about what happened to her original dress. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Mara's composure cracked slightly. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Really? I moved closer to her, my voice low. Because the security cameras in the hallway might tell a different story. Should we ask the venue manager to check the footage? Are you threatening me? Mara hissed, but I caught the flicker of fear in her eyes. Not at all. I'm simply making conversation. Oh, and I should mention, Jasmine's dress designs are quite popular with the society magazines. I'm sure they'll be very interested in featuring today's wedding. Tessa, catching on immediately, chimed in. Oh yes, I've already had 3 photographers ask about getting exclusive shots of the bride. They're especially interested in family photos. Mara's hands clenched at her sides. You wouldn't dare make a spectacle of this. Make a spectacle? I laughed softly. But isn't that exactly what you wanted? Though perhaps not quite the kind you had in mind. A knock at the door interrupted us. Yvette poked her head in. 5-minute warning, everyone. Oh, Mrs. Garcia, the catering crisis has been resolved. Though we did have to make some last-minute changes to the seating arrangement to accommodate the photographer from Vogue. Vogue, Mara whispered, looking faint. Don't worry, I said sweetly. I'm sure you'll photograph beautifully, though you might want to touch up your makeup. You look a little pale. Mara turned on her heel and fled the room, nearly colliding with Asher in the doorway. That, Tessa declared, was magnificent, but our triumph was short-lived. As Jasmine made a final inspection of the dress, her face suddenly tensed. We have a problem. The back closure, there's a crucial hook missing. Without it, the dress won't stay properly secured during the ceremony. Can't we just pin it? Tessa suggested desperately. Not with this fabric. Jasmine shook her head. We need a specific type of closure, and we're out of time. My heart sank. After everything, was Mara going to win after all? Wait, Asher said suddenly. That vintage clip in your hair, could we modify it? Jasmine's eyes lit up. Autumn, may I see your mother's clip? I carefully removed it from my hair, my hands shaking slightly as I handed it over. Jasmine examined it closely, then smiled. This is perfect, Asher, my tools. Working with incredible speed, Jasmine modified the clip into an elegant closure that not only secured the dress, but added an extra touch of vintage beauty to the design. Your mother, she said softly as she worked, always said that sometimes the best solutions are hidden in plain sight. There, it's done. I blinked back tears as I felt the dress settle perfectly into place. My mother's clip, transformed just like the dress, would help me walk down the aisle. Places, everyone, Yvette called from the doorway. We're ready to begin. As my bridesmaids hurried to line up, Jasmine squeezed my hand. Remember, darling, you're not just wearing a dress. You're wearing your mother's love, my art, and your own strength. Now go show Mara what real class looks like. I took a deep breath and moved toward the door. In just a few minutes, I would walk down the aisle to marry Travis. And his mother? Well, she was about to learn that some lessons come wrapped in silk and lace. Ready? Tessa whispered, handing me my bouquet. I nodded, feeling stronger than ever. Ready to make history. The hallway outside the ceremony space buzzed with last-minute activity. As I waited for my cue, I overheard raised voices around the corner. I recognized them immediately, Travis and Mara. Mom, what did you do? Travis's voice was sharp with anger. I don't know what you're talking about, Mara replied, but her voice wavered. Don't lie to me. The venue manager just showed me the security footage. I saw you sneaking into the bridal suite last night with a garment bag. My heart pounded. Someone had already shown Travis the footage? Darling, I was just trying to protect you, Mara pleaded. That girl, she's not from our world. She'll never understand our way of life. Our way of life? Travis's laugh was bitter. You mean looking down on everyone else? Treating people like they're beneath us? That's not my way of life, Mom. That's yours. Everything I've done has been for you. No, Travis cut her off. Everything you've done has been about control, just like with Dad. The silence that followed was deafening. Don't you dare bring your father into this, Mara hissed. Why not? Isn't this exactly why he left? Because you tried to control every aspect of his life until he couldn't take it anymore? I pressed myself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. In 3 years, Travis had never spoken about his father's departure. Your father was weak, Mara spat. He chose to walk away from everything we built. No, Mom. He chose freedom over your manipulation. And if you don't stop this now, if you don't accept Autumn and treat her with respect, you're gonna lose me too. Footsteps approached, and I quickly moved away from the wall, pretending to adjust my dress. Travis rounded the corner, stopping short when he saw me. Autumn, he breathed, taking in the dress. You look incredible. You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, I said softly. He stepped closer, his eyes suspiciously bright. I'm so sorry about my mother. I had no idea she would. Hey, I touched his cheek. This isn't your fault. But it is. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected you. Travis, I met his eyes. I don't need protection. What I need is a partner who stands by me, and that's exactly what you just did. A throat cleared behind us. Jasmine stood there, looking elegant and authoritative. As touching as this is, we have a wedding to start. Travis, your place is at the altar. Autumn, let's get you in position. As Travis reluctantly headed toward the ceremony space, Jasmine adjusted my dress one final time. The photographers are ready. Mara won't know what hit her. I heard everything, I whispered, about Travis's father. Ah, yes, Jasmine nodded. Robert Garcia, a good man who finally had enough of Mara's games. Sometimes the kindest people take the longest to reach their breaking point. The wedding march began to play softly. That's your cue, Jasmine said, stepping back. Show them what real grace looks like. I took my position, clutching my bouquet. Through the doors, I could see the packed ceremony space, cameras discreetly positioned to capture every moment. Mara sat in the front row, her face a mask of barely contained fury. The doors opened fully, and every head turned. I heard the collective gasp as people took in the dress. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the photographers' cameras clicking rapidly, but my focus was entirely on Travis, standing at the altar with tears in his eyes and the proudest smile I'd ever seen. Each step down the aisle felt like a victory. The dress moved like liquid silver, my mother's transformed clip securing everything perfectly. As I passed Mara, I caught her eye and gave her my sweetest smile. You look beautiful, Travis whispered as I reached him. Thanks to your mother, I whispered back, just loud enough for Mara to hear. If she hadn't helped create this situation, I never would have had the chance to wear a Jasmine Clark original. I suppose we should thank her. From her seat, Mara's face turned an interesting shade of purple. But as the officiant began to speak, I noticed something else. Behind her carefully maintained facade, there was fear. She was finally realizing that her actions hadn't just failed to humiliate me, they had backfired spectacularly, and we were just getting started. The ceremony began, but this was more than just a wedding now. It was a statement about standing up to bullies, about rising above pettiness, and about the way karma sometimes arrives wearing couture. The ceremony flowed perfectly into the reception, where the real show was about to begin. As Travis and I made our entrance into the beautifully decorated hall, the photographer from Vogue approached us. Mrs. Garcia, she addressed me, deliberately using my new surname. Would you mind if we did a special feature on your dress? It's causing quite a buzz already. Of course, I smiled, catching Mara's expression darkening from across the room, though the real story behind it is quite interesting. Oh? The photographer leaned in, pen poised over her notebook. Yes, you see, my original dress mysteriously disappeared this morning, but then something magical happened. Autumn, Mara interrupted, appearing suddenly at my side. Perhaps this isn't the best time for interviews. Nonsense! Jasmine's voice rang out as she joined our group. Every bride should share her special story, especially when it involves one of my emergency wedding dress rescues. The photographer's eyes widened. Jasmine Clark, you designed this dress? In record time, too. Jasmine nodded. Though we should really thank Autumn's mother-in-law. If she hadn't created such an urgent situation, we might never have collaborated on this piece. What exactly do you mean by urgent situation? The photographer asked, scribbling furiously. Mara's face paled. I'm sure no one wants to hear about boring wedding day mishaps. Oh, but they do, Tessa chimed in, smartphone in hand. In fact, the video of you sneaking into the bridal suite last night is already getting attention on social media. Video? Mara choked out. The venue's security footage, Travis said coldly. Very clear quality, actually. The photographer was practically salivating. So this was more than just a last-minute dress change? Actually, I said sweetly, it's a beautiful story about overcoming adversity, about how sometimes when people try to tear you down, fate sends you angels instead. I gestured to Jasmine. Would you like to hear about my mother's connection to Jasmine Clark? Don't you dare, Mara hissed under her breath. Is there a problem, Mara? I asked loudly enough for nearby guests to turn their heads. You seem upset, almost as upset as when you discovered your plan to humiliate me backfired. The photographer's pen flew across her notebook. Mara looked around desperately, realizing she was trapped in a situation of her own making. I need some air, she stammered, turning to flee. Before you go, Jasmine called after her, you should know that this dress will be featured in our upcoming collection. We're calling it the Phoenix, beauty rising from attempted destruction. Poetic, isn't it? Mara froze mid-step, her shoulders stiffening. Oh, and Mara, I added, the original dress you took, it was a decoy. We suspected you might try something like this, so we kept the real one somewhere safe. But thanks to you, I ended up with something even better. The look on her face was priceless as she fled the reception hall. Several guests whispered and pointed, the story already spreading through the crowd. That, the photographer said, is going to make one hell of a feature. Travis pulled me close. You knew she would try to sabotage the dress? Let's just say I learned from the best, I smiled, nodding toward Jasmine. Your mother isn't the only one who can plan ahead. Speaking of planning, Jasmine interjected, I believe it's time for the mother-son dance, though it seems we're missing half of the pair. Travis looked toward the door his mother had fled through, then back at me. I think I know someone more deserving of that dance. He turned to Jasmine and extended his hand. Would you do me the honor? You've been more of a mother figure today than mine has been in years. Jasmine's composed facade cracked slightly, genuine emotion showing through. I would be delighted. As they moved to the dance floor, Tessa appeared at my side. Mission accomplished? Almost, I said, watching Travis and Jasmine dance while photographers captured the moment. But I think Karma has one more surprise in store for Mara. What do you mean? I smiled, thinking of the envelope in my purse, the one containing a letter from Travis's father that had arrived this morning. Let's just say the universe has perfect timing. The reception continued, a celebration not just of love, but of justice served with elegance and style. And somewhere in the venue, Mara was learning the hard way that some battles aren't worth fighting, especially against a bride who refuses to be broken. Mara's return to the reception was like a thundercloud rolling in. She marched straight to the microphone just as Travis and I finished our first dance, her face set with grim determination. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced, her voice carrying across the now silent room. "To my son and his bride." Travis tensed beside me. "Mom, don't." "You see," Mara continued, ignoring him, "I've been trying to protect this family's reputation, and there's something everyone should know about Autumn's background." "Actually," I cut in, reaching for my purse, "before you continue, there's something you might want to read first." I pulled out the envelope I'd been saving. "I'm speaking now," Mara snapped. "Is that any way to talk about family?" A deep voice called from the back of the room. The crowd parted, and there stood Robert, Travis's father, looking distinguished in a perfectly tailored suit. "Dad?" Travis breathed. "Robert?" Mara's voice cracked, the microphone picking up her shock. "What are you doing here?" "I invited him," I said, walking toward her with the envelope. "After he sent this letter explaining everything." Mara's hands shook as she took the envelope. The room was dead silent as she read, her face growing paler with each line. "You knew?" she whispered. "All this time, you knew? That you forged Robert's signature on those divorce papers 3 years ago? That you intercepted his letters to Travis?" "Yes, I knew." I turned to address the stunned crowd. "You see, Mara wasn't just trying to ruin my wedding day. She's been manipulating this family for years." "That's a lie." Mara grabbed the microphone again, but Robert stepped forward. "Is it, Mara? Should we discuss the offshore account you created in my name? The one you used to make it look like I'd abandoned our son for money?" Travis moved to stand beside his father, his voice thick with emotion. "All those times you said he chose to leave us?" "I did it for you," Mara cried. "He would have ruined everything with his ridiculous ideas about living a simple life." "No, Mom," Travis said firmly. "You did it for yourself. Just like trying to ruin Autumn's wedding dress. It's always been about control." "How dare you?" Mara sputtered. "After everything I've sacrificed." "The only thing you've sacrificed," Jasmine interrupted, stepping forward, "is your relationship with your son. And for what? To maintain some illusion of social superiority?" The photographer from Vogue was scribbling frantically, while several guests not so discreetly recorded the scene on their phones. "This is all your fault," Mara pointed at me accusingly. "You turned my son against me." "No, Mara," I replied calmly. "You did that all on your own. I just helped bring the truth to light. You see, when you tried to dig up dirt on my background, you missed something important. I worked as a private investigator's assistant through college. Finding evidence of your schemes wasn't that difficult." Mara's face contorted with rage. She lunged forward, but Tessa was quicker, accidentally on purpose spilling a full glass of red wine down the front of Mara's designer dress. "Oops," Tessa said innocently. "How clumsy of me." "Security," Yvette called out smoothly. "I believe Mrs. Garcia needs some assistance finding the exit." As 2 security guards approached, Mara looked around wildly, finally realizing she had lost everything: her control, her reputation, and most importantly, her son's trust. "Travis," she pleaded one last time, "you can't believe these lies." "They're not lies, Mom. I've seen the evidence." He turned to his father. "Dad, I think we have a lot to talk about." "We do, son," Robert agreed, placing a hand on Travis's shoulder. "Starting with my real reason for stepping back from the family business, which your mother conveniently forgot to mention involved starting a charitable foundation." As security escorted a protesting Mara out, the tension in the room broke. Guests began talking excitedly, the story spreading like wildfire. The Vogue photographer was already on her phone. presumably calling in what had just become a much bigger story than a simple wedding feature. "Well," Jasmine said, appearing beside me with a champagne flute, "I'd say karma just made quite a spectacular entrance." I watched as Travis embraced his father, years of misunderstandings finally clearing up. Sometimes karma needs a little help finding its way. "Indeed," she smiled, though I must say, that private investigator detail was a brilliant touch. "Who says it was just a detail?" I winked, clinking my glass against hers. The reception resumed, but now with an air of celebration that went beyond just a wedding. It was a celebration of truth, justice, and the power of standing up to those who would try to break us. And somewhere in the city, Mara was learning that some stains, like karma and red wine, never really wash out. As the evening wound down, Travis and I slipped away to the venue's garden terrace. The fairy lights twinkled above us, and the faint sound of music drifted through the open doors. "So," Travis said, loosening his tie, "my new wife is a part-time private investigator who orchestrated an elaborate plan to expose my mother's schemes, all while pulling off the wedding of the century." "Disappointed?" I asked, leaning against the balustrade. He pulled me close. "Are you kidding? I'm in awe. Though I do have one question. How did you find my father?" "Actually, he found me," I admitted. "Remember that charity gala last month? He was there, saw our engagement announcement in the society pages. He reached out, and once we started talking," I shrugged. "The pieces fell into place." "And the security footage of Mom stealing the dress? Yvette's idea. She had a feeling Mara might try something dramatic." The terrace doors opened, and Robert stepped out, followed by Jasmine. "Hope we're not interrupting," Robert said, "but there's something you both should know." He glanced at Jasmine, who nodded encouragingly. "I'm reinstating Travis as the Foundation's director, if he wants it." Travis straightened. "The youth education program? The one Mom said was a waste of resources?" "The very same, though it's grown quite a bit, thanks to a certain designer's contributions." Robert smiled at Jasmine. "We've been working together for years," Jasmine explained, "supporting underprivileged students in fashion and business programs. Your mother never approved, of course." "That's why you really came today, isn't it?" I asked. "Not just because of my mother's connection." "Guilty," Jasmine admitted. "When Robert mentioned you were marrying Travis, it felt like fate, though I certainly didn't expect to be designing a wedding dress at the last minute." "Speaking of unexpected," Tessa's voice called as she joined us, "you might want to see this." She held up her phone, showing a social media post going viral. It was the security footage of Mara stealing the dress, paired with photos of the final result. "The internet has officially dubbed it Karma's wedding dress." Tessa grinned. "You're trending." "Great," I groaned. "Just what Mara needs, more ammunition." "Actually," Robert said, checking his own phone, "Mara just boarded a flight to Europe. First class, naturally. She left a message saying she needs time to reflect on her choices." Travis let out a long breath. "Good. Maybe some distance will help her realize what really matters." "And what matters to you?" Robert asked softly. "About the foundation?" Travis looked at me, and I squeezed his hand encouragingly. "I want in," he said firmly. "All in, but with one condition. Autumn gets to be part of it too. Her investigative skills could help us identify families who need support but might be hesitant to ask." "Perfect," Jasmine beamed. "And while you're at it, perhaps we could discuss a scholarship program for aspiring fashion designers in honor of your mother, Autumn." I blinked back tears. She would have loved that. The sound of camera shutters made us turn. The Vogue photographer stood in the doorway, looking apologetic. "Sorry to interrupt, but this is perfect. The next generation of philanthropy, fashion, and family coming together. May I?" We posed for a few photos, But these weren't the stiff, formal shots Mara had always insisted on. These were natural, joyful moments of a family being rebuilt on a foundation of truth and purpose. As the party inside began to wind down, Travis pulled me onto the terrace's small dance floor for one last dance. "You know what I realized?" he murmured. "Mom always said she was protecting our family's legacy, but she never understood what that legacy really was." "And what is it?" He gestured to where Robert and Jasmine were deep in discussion about scholarship programs, to Tessa showing Yvette the viral posts, to the evidence of love and support all around us. This, not the money or the status, but the ability to make a real difference, to build something meaningful. I rested my head on his shoulder, thinking of my mother's clip that had helped save the day, of Jasmine's unexpected connection, of karma's perfect timing. "You know what they say," I smiled. "The best revenge isn't just getting even. It's living well," he finished, then kissed me under the twinkling lights. Inside, the band played their final song. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and probably a few viral memes about karma and wedding dresses. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Sometimes karma doesn't just come full circle. It creates an entirely new one, stronger and more beautiful than before.
The sound of wine glasses clinking and laughter filled my living room until my mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the joy like a knife through butter. "Really, Sadie? A slumber party at your age? Don't you think it's time to grow up? I'm Sadie, a children's book author, and at 32, I was hosting what had become a monthly tradition with my closest friends. We'd spread blankets on the floor, open a few bottles of wine, and share stories late into the night. It was my escape, my sanctuary, at least until Elizabeth decided to make an unannounced visit. Elizabeth, I scrambled to my feet, nearly knocking over my wine glass. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow's dinner." She stood in my doorway, perfectly coiffed as always, her designer handbag hanging from her arm like a shield of superiority. "Clearly, I thought I'd surprise Cole, but I see he's not here." "He's working late at the office," I explained, watching my friends exchange uncomfortable glances. "Would you like to join us?" "Join what exactly? This juvenile display?" Elizabeth's eyes swept across my living room, taking in the scattered pillows, half-empty pizza boxes, and my friends in their pajamas. "I suppose this is what happens when you spend your days writing children's stories instead of pursuing a real career." Ava, my best friend since college, stood up. "Actually, Sadie's latest book just hit the bestseller list." "Oh yes, I heard." Elizabeth's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A story about a purple unicorn who can't fly. How profound." My cheeks burned. Rainbow the unicorn helps children understand it's okay to be different. Different is one word for it. Elizabeth set her bag down with deliberate precision. "When Cole married you, I had hoped you'd eventually pursue something more substantial. A law degree, perhaps, or medical school. Instead, you're having pajama parties and writing about magical horses." Madison, Elizabeth's own niece, spoke up from her spot on the floor. "Aunt Elizabeth, that's not fair." "Life isn't fair, dear," Elizabeth cut her off. "And enabling this behavior isn't helping anyone, especially not Sadie." I felt something snap inside me. 6 years of biting my tongue, of smiling through her backhanded compliments and thinly veiled insults, finally reached a breaking point. "My behavior?" I stepped forward, my voice steadier than I felt. "You mean my successful career as an author? My marriage to your son, which has never been happier? Or maybe you're referring to these monthly gatherings where I maintain meaningful friendships instead of judging others from my moral high ground?" The room fell silent. Elizabeth's face tightened, that familiar look of disapproval deepening the lines around her mouth. "I see Cole's absence has made you bold," she said quietly. "But someone needs to speak truth here. You're living in a fantasy world, Sadie. Writing children's books is a hobby, not a career. And these," she gestured to my friends, "little gatherings are hardly the mark of a mature woman." "Get out." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." My hands were shaking, but my voice remained firm. "This is my home, and these are my friends. You don't get to come in here uninvited and insult us. Not anymore." Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. I'll be sure to tell Cole about this warm welcome when I see him tomorrow. Please do, I replied. Tell him exactly how you showed up unannounced to criticize his wife's career and friendships. I'm sure he'd love to hear all about it. She gathered her bag with rigid dignity. Well, I can see this evening as a waste of everyone's time. I'll see you all tomorrow at dinner. Try to dress appropriately, Sadie. No unicorn pajamas. After she left, the silence lingered until Ava whispered, "Holy shit, Sadie." I collapsed onto the couch, my heart pounding. I just kicked out my mother-in-law. Madison crawled over and squeezed my hand. She deserved it. You know that, right? I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow's dinner. Elizabeth would never let this go. She'd find a way to twist it, to make me look like the villain. Unless... I need to find something, I heard myself say. Something that will make her understand she's not as perfect as she thinks she is. Ava topped off my wine glass. What did you have in mind? I took a long sip, remembering a conversation I'd overheard at last year's family reunion. Something about Elizabeth's past, a scandal that was quickly hushed up. I don't know yet, but I'm done letting her make me feel small. It's time she learned what it feels like to be on the receiving end of judgment. Looking back, that was the moment everything changed. I didn't know it then, but my decision to stand up to Elizabeth would unravel a secret she'd kept buried for decades and change our family forever. The town library's basement archive smelled like old paper and secrets. I'd been researching local history for my next children's book when Madison's text from last week's slumber party caught my eye. Remember what Uncle Teddy mentioned about Aunt Elizabeth at last year's reunion? Check the summer of 1975. Need any help? Carol, the elderly librarian, peered over my shoulder at the stack of newspapers. Just browsing, I said, but something made me add, though I am curious about any society columns from the summer of 75, particularly around the country club. Carol's eyes lit up. Oh, that was quite a summer. The scandal with the Snyder family. She trailed off, catching herself. But I shouldn't gossip. My heart quickened. The Snyder family? Let me fetch those archives for you, dear. She disappeared between the shelves, returning with a heavy-bound volume. Lawrence Snyder was quite the talk of the town back then. Such a shame about his engagement. I flipped through the yellowed pages until a familiar face stopped me cold. There, in a grainy black-and-white photo, stood a young Elizabeth at some garden party. But it wasn't her presence that made my hands shake. It was the way she was looking at the man beside her, their bodies angled toward each other with unmistakable intimacy. The caption read, "Lawrence Snyder and fiancée Margaret attend the annual summer solstice ball." "Margaret," I whispered. Carol nodded. "Lawrence's fiancée. They were supposed to get married that August, but..." She glanced around conspiratorially. "Well, let's just say the wedding never happened." I dug deeper, finding more photos, more stories. Elizabeth appeared in several, always hovering near Lawrence, always with that same look of barely concealed longing. My phone buzzed. "Madison. Find anything interesting?" "You could say that," I typed back. "Your aunt had quite the summer romance. Meet me at Joe's Coffee in 20. There's more." 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from Madison, who was already nursing a latte. "Spill," I said. She leaned forward. "Mom told me the story years ago. Lawrence and Elizabeth were having an affair that whole summer. Everyone knew, but nobody talked about it openly. Then Margaret caught them together at the boathouse. What happened? The engagement was called off, obviously. Lawrence left town, Margaret moved to Boston, and Elizabeth..." Madison stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "She married Uncle Richard 3 months later. My mom says she's spent the last 40 years pretending it never happened." I sat back, processing. Does Cole know? No one in our generation knows except me. The family buried it deep. Madison's eyes met mine. "But Lawrence moved back to town last month. He bought that big house on Maple Street." My phone buzzed again. "Cole, Mom's still upset about last night. Says you were disrespectful." I showed Madison the text. "Your aunt's spent years judging me for not being proper enough, for not fitting her image of the perfect daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, she's been hiding this all along. What are you going to do?" I thought about every snide comment, every disapproving look, every time Elizabeth had made me feel less than worthy. The family reunion's this weekend. Maybe it's time for some truth-telling. "Sadie." Madison's voice held a warning note. Be careful, this could blow up in your face. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said, realizing as I spoke that it was true. I just want her to stop acting so superior, to acknowledge that she's human too. And if Cole gets angry, he deserves to know who his mother really is. I pulled out my notebook, jotting down details. Do you think Lawrence would talk to me? Madison's eyes widened. You're not seriously going to... I'm going to visit him tomorrow. I closed my notebook with determination. Elizabeth needs to understand she can't keep judging others while pretending her own past doesn't exist. This is going to be explosive, Madison warned, but I've got your back. And honestly, maybe it's time someone stood up to Aunt Elizabeth. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. The annual Hudson family reunion was famous for its drama, but this year would be different. This year, the perfect Elizabeth would finally face her own imperfections. My phone rang. Cole again. Hey, love, everything okay? Mom seemed pretty upset when she called. Everything's fine, I said, thinking of the photos in the archive. But honey, we need to talk when you get home. There's something you should know about your mother. The silence on the other end lasted a moment too long. What kind of something? The kind that explains a lot about why she is the way she is. I pulled into our driveway, seeing our house lights glowing warmly in the dusk. And maybe, if we're lucky, the kind that might finally change things between us. The Hudson estate loomed before us, its manicured lawns dotted with relatives in their Sunday best. Cole squeezed my hand as we walked up the driveway. After our talk last night, he'd been unusually quiet. You okay? I asked. Still processing, he murmured. I just can't believe my mother would... Cole! Sadie! Elizabeth's voice rang out across the lawn, artificially bright. She swept toward us in a powder blue dress, arms outstretched. You're late. Traffic, Cole said, accepting her hug stiffly. Elizabeth's smile tightened when she turned to me. Sadie, dear, I trust you're feeling more mature today? Before I could respond, Teddy appeared with a tray of champagne. First round's up. Who needs a drink? God, yes, Cole muttered, grabbing 2 glasses and handing one to me. We made our way through the crowd of relatives exchanging pleasantries. I spotted Madison by the buffet table, deep in conversation with her mother. She caught my eye and gave a subtle nod, our signal that Lawrence had indeed accepted her invitation to stop by later. Sadie, Ava called out, waving from a cluster of younger cousins. Come here, we're telling embarrassing stories about our significant others. I started toward her, but Elizabeth's hand caught my arm. A word, dear? She steered me toward a quiet corner of the garden. About the other night. Elizabeth, Let me finish. Her perfectly manicured nails dug slightly into my arm. I've been thinking about what you said, about your... career. Perhaps I was hasty in my judgment. I blinked, thrown off guard. Really? Indeed. After all, someone needs to write those little books. She patted my hand condescendingly. And you seem to have found your... level. The familiar anger bubbled up. My level? Sadie, Madison's voice cut through the tension. Aunt Elizabeth, sorry to interrupt, but Uncle Richard's looking for you. Something about the catering? Elizabeth's lips pursed. We'll continue this later, dear. She glided away, leaving the scent of expensive perfume in her wake. Madison waited until she was out of earshot. He's here. Lawrence just pulled up. My heart jumped. Does Elizabeth know? Not yet. He's waiting in the garden house. Madison glanced around nervously. Are you sure about this? I watched Elizabeth across the lawn, holding court among her admirers. More sure than ever. The garden house was a small Victorian structure, filled with potted plants and wicker furniture. Lawrence stood when we entered, and I was struck by how distinguished he looked, tall and silver-haired with kind eyes. You must be Sadie, he said, extending his hand. Madison explained everything. Thank you for coming, I said. I know this must be awkward. He smiled sadly. Less awkward than 40 years of pretending it never happened. He sat down, gesturing for us to join him. I assume you have questions. Just one, really. I leaned forward. Why did you come back? Unfinished business. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Letters. Elizabeth wrote them that summer. I thought she might want them back. Madison gasped softly. You kept them? All this time? Some stories don't end, they just pause. He handed me the envelope. Use them wisely, Sadie. Elizabeth isn't the villain you think she is. I don't think she's a villain, I said. I just want her to stop acting like she's perfect. A commotion outside made us all freeze. Through the window, I saw Elizabeth standing on the path, her face draining of color as she stared at the garden house. Lawrence? Her voice carried through the glass, barely a whisper. He stood, straightening his jacket. That's my cue. Wait, I started, but he was already moving toward the door. Elizabeth, he said simply as he stepped outside. The garden fell silent. Relatives stopped mid-conversation, drinks halfway to their lips, watching the scene unfold. What are you doing here? Elizabeth's voice shook. Uncle Richard invited me. Lawrence's voice was gentle. It's been a long time, Lizzie. The childhood nickname seemed to break something in Elizabeth. She took a step backward, then another. I have to. She turned and fled toward the house. Mom, Cole called after her, but she didn't stop. I emerged from the garden house, the envelope heavy in my hands. Cole looked at me, then at Lawrence, understanding dawning on his face. Is this what you were planning? He asked quietly. Not exactly, I admitted, but maybe it's better this way. Teddy appeared beside us, looking worried. Elizabeth's locked herself in the study. Richard's trying to talk to her. Madison touched my arm. What now? I looked down at the envelope, thinking of Elizabeth's face when she saw Lawrence. For the first time, I'd seen real emotion crack through her perfect facade. Not just shock or anger, but pain. Deep, decades-old pain. Now, I said, we wait. The truth's already out there. The rest is up to her. The party continued around us, but the atmosphere had shifted. Everyone was watching, waiting, wondering what would happen when Elizabeth finally emerged from the study. And I realized, with a sudden clarity, that this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something much more complicated. The study door remained closed for an hour before Cole finally had enough. I need to talk to her, he said, pulling away from where we'd been sitting in the garden. I followed him, the envelope of letters still clutched in my hand. Wait, let me come with you. Inside the house, we found Richard slumped in a hallway chair. She won't open the door, he said, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Not even for me. Cole knocked softly. Mom, it's me. Silence. Mom, please, we need to talk about this. The lock clicked. The door opened just enough for Elizabeth's voice to drift out. Just you, Cole. He glanced at me apologetically, but I shook my head. No, I said firmly, stepping forward. All of us. No more secrets. A long pause followed before the door swung open. Elizabeth sat behind the massive oak desk, her makeup perfectly intact despite everything. Only her white-knuckled grip on a crystal tumbler betrayed her distress. I suppose you're enjoying this, she said to me, her voice brittle. Actually, no. I placed the envelope on her desk. These belong to you. Her hand trembled as she touched the yellowed paper. Where did you? Lawrence kept them, all these years. Cole moved closer to his mother. Why didn't you ever tell me? Tell you what? Elizabeth's laugh was harsh. That your mother was the town's scandal? That I nearly destroyed 2 families with my foolishness? That you're human, I said quietly. That you made mistakes, just like everyone else. She looked up sharply. Is that what this is about? Teaching me a lesson? At first, yes. I met her gaze steadily. I wanted you to feel as small as you've made me feel all these years. But seeing you with Lawrence today, I shook my head. This isn't about revenge anymore. Then what is it about? Her voice cracked slightly. Understanding. Cole pulled up a chair beside her desk. Mom, you've spent my whole life pushing everyone to be perfect, to live up to some impossible standard. Was it because you were trying to make up for what happened? Elizabeth's hand shook as she opened the envelope, pulling out the first letter. Her own youthful handwriting stared back at her. I was so young, she whispered, so sure I knew what love was supposed to be. What happened? Cole asked gently. Lawrence was engaged to Margaret. It wasn't planned. But we fell in love. She touched the letter softly. When Margaret found out, the scandal nearly ruined both families. Your grandfather gave me a choice. Marry Richard, who had always cared for me, or be cut off completely. So you chose security, I said. I chose survival. Elizabeth's eyes met mine. And I've spent 40 years making sure no one could ever question my choices again, including you, Sadie. The truth of it hung in the air between us. But Mom, Cole said, pushing everyone away, demanding perfection, it hasn't made you happy? No, she admitted quietly. It hasn't. A knock at the door made us all turn. Madison stood there with Lawrence. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have come. Elizabeth stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. Why did you come back? Because I never stopped wondering, what if? He stepped into the room. Because I thought maybe, after all these years, we could at least stop pretending it never happened. I can't do this, Elizabeth whispered, but she didn't move away when he approached the desk. You don't have to do anything, he said gently, but maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself and everyone around you for choices made 40 years ago. I touched Cole's arm. We should give them privacy. As we turned to leave, Elizabeth's voice stopped us. Sadie. I looked back. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time since I'd known her, there wasn't a trace of judgment in her eyes. For everything. In the hallway, Cole pulled me close. Did that really just happen? I think it did. I leaned into him, emotionally drained. What happens now? Now? Richard's voice made us jump. He stood from his chair, straightening his jacket. Now we go back to the party and give them time to talk. Some conversations are 40 years overdue. As we walked back to the garden, I heard Elizabeth's laugh drift through the study window, not her usual controlled social laugh, but something real and unexpected. Madison fell into step beside us. Well, that was intense. Think she'll be okay? I asked. I think, Cole said slowly, that my mother might finally let herself be something better than okay. She might let herself be real. The party continued around us, but something had shifted. The perfect facade of the Hudson family had cracked, and through those cracks, something more authentic was beginning to shine through. I squeezed Cole's hand, thinking about the power of hidden truths and the courage it takes to face them. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's forcing someone to finally be honest with themselves. The annual family toast was a Hudson tradition, and despite everything that had happened, Elizabeth insisted on maintaining it. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, the family gathered around the garden terrace. Where is she? Cole whispered, scanning the crowd. Still in the study with Lawrence, Madison replied, but Uncle Richard just went to get them. Moments later, Elizabeth emerged, Lawrence a respectful distance behind her. Her hair was slightly mussed, her eyes rimmed red, but she held herself with the same regal posture as always. Richard handed her a champagne glass, and she stepped up to the terrace steps. I'd like to propose a toast, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. But then she paused, her practiced smile faltering. The silence stretched uncomfortably until I found myself stepping forward. Actually, Elizabeth, may I? She looked at me with surprise, then gave a small nod. I raised my glass, heart pounding. To family, I said. Not the perfect version we pretend to be, but the real, messy, complicated people we are. Elizabeth's hand trembled slightly on her glass. To the mistakes that shape us, I continued, and the courage it takes to face them. I met Elizabeth's eyes. To second chances, and the wisdom to recognize when it's time to let go of old masks. To second chances, Lawrence echoed softly from the back. Elizabeth's composure cracked. I need to say something. She stepped forward, her voice unsteady. For years, I've stood here giving toasts about family values and proper behavior. But today, she looked around at the faces watching her. Today, I need to tell the truth. A murmur rippled through the crowd. 40 years ago, I made choices that hurt people I cared about. Her eyes found Lawrence's. I've spent decades trying to be perfect to make up for it, and in doing so, I've hurt others. She turned to me, especially those who reminded me that perfection is impossible. Cole squeezed my hand. Sadie, Elizabeth said, I owe you an apology. A real one, not the hollow words I offered earlier. Your authenticity, your willingness to be yourself, it threatened me because it reminded me of who I used to be. before I buried that part of myself under rules and expectations. I hadn't expected this. Elizabeth, please, let me finish. She straightened her shoulders. I've been horrible to you. I've criticized your career, your choices, your very nature. But the truth is, you've achieved something I never could. The courage to be genuinely yourself. Tears pricked at my eyes as she continued. So yes, let's toast to second chances. Elizabeth raised her glass again. To letting go of perfect facades. To my remarkable daughter-in-law, who had the courage to force me to face my past. And to everyone I've hurt with my judgment and criticism, I am truly sorry. The garden was silent except for a few sniffles. Mom, Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. Elizabeth turned to him. And to you, my son, I'm sorry for never telling you the truth, for making you think you had to be perfect to be loved. Lawrence stepped forward then, and the crowd parted for him. To Elizabeth, he said quietly, who was always perfect exactly as she was. Richard cleared his throat. To my wife, he added, whom I've loved through all her imperfections, just as she's loved through mine. Glasses clinked as the toasts rippled through the family. I watched as decades of tension seemed to dissolve in the fading sunlight. Elizabeth made her way to me through the crowd. I suppose you think I deserved this public confession. Actually, I said, I think you deserve the chance to finally be free of it. She studied me for a long moment. You know, I always wondered why Cole chose you. Now I understand. You see people for who they really are, don't you? I try to. Even when they're being absolutely awful to you? Especially then, I smiled. Usually means they're hiding something. Elizabeth laughed, a real laugh, like the one I'd heard from the study. Well, you certainly figured me out. She touched my arm gently. I can't promise I'll change overnight. Old habits? Die hard? I finished. That's okay, I'm not going anywhere. No, she said softly. I suppose you're not. She glanced over at Lawrence, who was deep in conversation with Richard. None of us can change the past, but perhaps we can stop letting it poison the present. As the party continued around us, I watched Elizabeth move through the crowd, stopping to speak quietly with various family members. She was different now, softer somehow, more human. The perfect mask had cracked, and underneath, I caught glimpses of the young woman from those old photographs, the one who knew how to love freely and laugh without restraint. Maybe that was the real revenge, not destroying someone's facade, but helping them remember who they were before they built it. As twilight settled over the garden, small groups formed and reformed, decades of family secrets suddenly finding their way into the open. I sat with Madison and Ava on the terrace steps, watching the aftermath of Elizabeth's confession unfold. Did you see Aunt Margaret's face during the toast? Madison whispered, nodding toward a stern-faced woman in navy blue. I thought she was going to explode. Wait, that's Margaret. I straightened up. Lawrence's ex-fiancé? The one and only. Ava leaned in. Apparently, she RSVPs to every family event, but hasn't actually shown up in years. Until today. Margaret stood alone, clutching her wine glass like a weapon as she watched Elizabeth and Lawrence talking quietly by the rose garden. Should someone do something? I asked. Too late, Madison muttered as Margaret began striding toward them. Well, well. Margaret's voice carried across the garden. Quite the performance, Elizabeth. 40 years of pretending to be better than everyone, and now suddenly you're Mother Teresa? Elizabeth turned slowly. Margaret, I didn't know you were here. Clearly. Margaret's laugh was bitter. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. The great Elizabeth Hudson finally admitting she's just as flawed as the rest of us. Lawrence stepped forward. Margaret, please. Oh, don't Margaret, please me. She jabbed a finger at his chest. You don't get to play peacemaker. Not after what you two did. Cole appeared beside me. Should we intervene? No, I said, touching his arm. I think this needs to happen. Elizabeth squared her shoulders. You're right, Margaret. What we did was unforgivable. Unforgivable? Margaret's voice rose. Do you have any idea what it was like? The whispers, the pitying looks, having to leave town because I couldn't bear to see you playing happy families with Richard? I know, Elizabeth said quietly. And I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for spending 40 years pretending I was somehow morally superior to make up for it. Sorry doesn't erase the past. No, Lawrence said, it doesn't. But maybe it's time we all stopped letting the past control our present. Margaret turned on him. Easy for you to say. You got to leave. Start fresh. Fresh. Lawrence's laugh was hollow. I've spent 40 years wondering if I made the biggest mistake of my life. There's nothing fresh about that. A crowd had gathered now, watching the drama unfold. Richard stepped forward, surprising everyone. Margaret, he said gently, we were all young, we all made mistakes. But carrying this anger, it's only hurting you. How can you defend them? She demanded. She betrayed me, he humiliated me, and you just married her anyway. Yes, Richard nodded, because I loved her. Even knowing everything. Sometimes love means accepting people's imperfections. Elizabeth reached for his hand, tears in her eyes. It's easy to hold on to anger, I found myself saying, stepping forward. Trust me, I know. I've spent years angry at Elizabeth for making me feel less than worthy. Elizabeth flinched. But today, I continued, I saw something different. I saw someone brave enough to finally face their mistakes, to apologize, to try to make things right. Margaret's hands trembled. I don't know how to let it go. Then don't, Lawrence said. Not all at once. But maybe start by sharing a drink with old friends. Talk about what really happened. Let us apologize properly. We owe you that much, Elizabeth added. All of us do. Margaret looked between them, decades of pain visible in her expression. Finally, her shoulders sagged. I suppose 40 years is a long time to be angry. Come, Richard said, gesturing toward the house. Let's talk in the study, all of us. As they walked away, Cole wrapped his arm around me. How did this become so complicated? Family usually is, Madison said, appearing beside us. But you know what? I think this needed to happen. All of it. Ava nodded. Sometimes you have to break something completely to fix it properly. We watched as the four of them disappeared into the house. The party continued around us, but there was a different energy now, as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted. You know, Cole said thoughtfully, I've never seen my mother look so real. Real is good, I replied, thinking of all the times Elizabeth had criticized me for being too authentic, too unpolished. Real means there's hope. Madison raised her glass. To real families? To real families, we echoed. As the stars began to appear above us, I thought about how revenge had transformed into something else entirely. Instead of exposing Elizabeth's past to hurt her, we'd somehow created space for healing, not just for her, but for everyone touched by that long-ago summer. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy us. Sometimes it sets us free. The study door opened an hour later, and the four of them emerged looking exhausted but somehow lighter. Elizabeth's eyes were red, but she was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. Margaret walked beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Sadie, Elizabeth called out, could you join us for a moment? I followed them into the study where Lawrence and Richard were already pouring fresh drinks. The tension from earlier had transformed into something more contemplative. We've been talking, Elizabeth said, settling into an armchair, about the past, about mistakes, about forgiveness. She looked at Margaret. And about judgment. Margaret nodded. Elizabeth told me how she's treated you over the years. It's fine, I started. No, Elizabeth cut in sharply. It's not fine. I transferred my guilt onto you, Sadie. I saw in you everything I'd lost, that freedom to be genuine, to follow your heart without fear of judgment, and instead of admiring it, I tried to crush it. The way people tried to crush us, Lawrence added quietly. The way I helped crush you, Margaret said, surprising me. After everything came out, I made sure everyone knew what horrible people you were. I wanted you to suffer like I had suffered. Elizabeth reached for her hand. We deserved it. No, Margaret shook her head. No one deserves to be destroyed by their mistakes. I see that now. She turned to me. Which is why we wanted to talk to you. Richard cleared his throat. We've all been part of a cycle of judgment and revenge, It needs to stop. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying, Elizabeth stood, approaching me, that I want to make things right, really right, not just with an apology, but with actions. She pulled out a folder from her desk. I've been working on something, a children's book about forgiveness and second chances, about a little girl who learns that the scary witch next door is just a lonely woman with a sad story. I stared at her. You're writing a children's book? Well, she smiled sheepishly. I was hoping you might help me write it. Maybe collaborate? The room spun slightly. You want to write a book with me? Who better? Lawrence chuckled. You understand both sides of this story better than anyone. Plus, Margaret added, it might help other families avoid 40 years of pain and misunderstanding. I looked at the folder, then at Elizabeth. You're serious about this? Completely. She took my hands in hers. Sadie, you came here wanting revenge, but you gave me something far more valuable, the courage to be honest, to face my past, to stop hiding behind perfection. Tears welled in my eyes. I didn't expect this. None of us did, Richard said warmly. But sometimes the unexpected is exactly what we need. A knock at the door interrupted us. Cole poked his head in. Everything okay in here? More than okay, I said, wiping my eyes. Your mother just asked me to collaborate on a children's book with her. His jaw dropped. Mom, you're writing a book? Well, Elizabeth laughed, I thought it was time to try something new, something real. Margaret raised her glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, we echoed. As we rejoined the party outside, the evening had taken on an almost magical quality. The garden lights twinkled, and the tension that had characterized so many family gatherings had dissolved into genuine warmth. I watched as Elizabeth moved through the crowd, stopping to have real conversations instead of making polite small talk. She hugged people she'd previously only nodded to, laughed openly at jokes she would have once found inappropriate. You know what's amazing? Cole said, sliding his arm around my waist. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm seeing my actual mother, not just the role she's been playing. It's beautiful, I whispered. Across the garden, Elizabeth was showing her manuscript to Ava, gesturing animatedly as she described her idea. Ava caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. Madison appeared with fresh champagne. So, a children's book about forgiveness, huh? That's quite a plot twist. Life's full of them, I said, watching as Lawrence and Richard shared a laugh by the buffet table, decades of potential awkwardness dissolved by honest conversation. You did this, Cole said softly. You broke the cycle. I shook my head. We all did. Sometimes it takes a whole family to heal a wound. As if hearing us, Elizabeth looked up and smiled. Not her society smile, not her perfect hostess smile, but the smile of a woman who had finally laid down her armor and found herself stronger without it. The revenge I'd planned had transformed into something far more powerful: redemption. Not just for Elizabeth, but for all of us who had been caught in the web of old secrets and unspoken pain. Sometimes the best endings aren't about getting even, they're about getting honest. The final guests were leaving as dawn's first light touched the horizon. Elizabeth and I sat on the terrace steps, sharing the last bottle of champagne, watching as Lawrence helped Margaret into her car. They're going to have coffee tomorrow, Elizabeth said softly. Start working through things properly. Are you okay with that? She smiled, touching the manuscript in her lap. You know, for the first time in decades, I actually am. Some loves aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to teach us something. And what did you learn? That perfection is the enemy of happiness. She turned to face me. Sadie, when you first married Cole, I saw this vibrant, authentic young woman who refused to fit into the mold I'd created for our family. It terrified me. Because I reminded you of yourself before everything happened? Because you were everything I'd forced myself to stop being. She traced the edge of her glass. Watching you stand up to me, refuse to be diminished. It was like looking into a mirror of my younger self, the self I betrayed. Cole appeared in the doorway. Mom, Dad's looking for you. Something about breakfast plans with the out-of-town relatives. Just a moment, Elizabeth called back. She pulled an old photograph from between the pages of her manuscript and handed it to me. It showed a young woman in a sundress, laughing at something off camera, her whole face alive with joy. Is this me? The summer everything changed. Elizabeth's voice was soft. I want you to have it. Why? Because you gave me back that girl. Not through revenge, but through refusing to let me hide behind my perfect facade. She squeezed my hand. The book we're going to write? It's not just about forgiveness. It's about remembering who we really are. Elizabeth, call me Mom, she said suddenly. If you want to, that is. Tears sprang to my eyes. I'd like that, Richard's voice carried from inside. Lizzie, the breakfast arrangements? Coming, dear? She stood, straightening her dress. Oh, and Sadie, those monthly slumber parties of yours? I tensed slightly, remembering how this had all started. Next time, I'd like to bring the wine, if I'm invited. A laugh bubbled up from my chest. Really? Well, someone needs to teach your friends about proper vintages. Her eyes twinkled. Besides, I have 40 years of real stories to share. As she walked inside, Cole took her place beside me. Did my mother just invite herself to your slumber party? Apparently. I showed him the photograph. She gave me this. He studied it, smiling. I've never seen her look so free. Maybe we'll see it more often now. Inside, we could hear Elizabeth laughing with Richard about something. The sound was unrestrained, genuine, the laugh of a woman who had finally put down the weight of perfection. Madison and Ava joined us on the steps, looking sleepy but content. So, Ava yawned, mission accomplished? I thought about my original plan for revenge, how I'd wanted to expose Elizabeth's past to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. Instead, we'd all found something more valuable, truth, understanding, and the courage to be imperfect. Not exactly, I said. Something better happened. Yeah, Madison nodded toward the house where Elizabeth was now animatedly describing our book idea to Richard. We got our aunt back, the real one. The sun rose higher, painting the garden in soft morning light. Lawrence's car was long gone, Margaret's too. The letters that had started all this lay forgotten in Elizabeth's desk drawer. Their power to hurt finally faded. You know what this means, right? Cole grinned. Family dinners are going to be a lot more interesting from now on. Good, I said, leaning against him. I like interesting. Elizabeth appeared in the doorway again. Sadie, I've been thinking about the book. What if our witch character isn't really a witch at all? What if she's just someone who built walls to protect herself from getting hurt? I smiled, recognizing the metaphor. I think that's perfect. Perfect? She laughed. Oh no, dear, not perfect. Real. That's so much better. As the morning light filled the garden, I watched Elizabeth, my mother-in-law, my former nemesis, my future co-author, begin to sketch out ideas for our story. Her face was animated, her guard completely down, showing the woman she'd always been beneath the carefully constructed facade. Sometimes revenge doesn't look anything like what we planned. Sometimes it looks like healing, like truth, like second chances. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it looks like a fresh start for everyone involved. I picked up my glass, raising it one final time. To being real? To being real, they all echoed, as the new day dawned bright and full of possibility.